नमस्कारम, नमस्कार, प्रणाम। आप सभी को मेरा नमस्कार। मैं रीमा कपूर गौतम, your host for today. Science is the key to our future, and if you don't believe in science, then you are holding everybody back. But our belief in science is manifested much louder and clearer when we say Atmanirbhar Bharataay Vishwa Kalyanay Cha Vigyanam. And we know the role of science in India's self-reliance. India, always ahead and inspiring. Ladies and gentlemen, respected guests, dignitaries, Ministry of Science and Technology, Ministry of Earth Sciences, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, welcomes you all to 6th International Science Festival 2020, the largest festival of science in Asia. And to bring science closer to human life in its most effective way, that is cinema, films, the stories of human life through the perspective of science. Vigyan Bharati brings you the International Science Film Festival of India, coordinated by Vigyan Prasar, organized by CSIR. The International Science Film Festival of India seeks to promote science popularization among citizens and aims at attracting talented young science filmmakers and science enthusiasts. Science film is an effective tool for science communication to create the excitement of science amongst people at large. It also helps to inculcate a scientific temper among the audience, thereby shaping analytical thinking, a prerequisite for the inclusive development of the nation. Science is organized knowledge and wisdom is organized life. And today science is life and life is all about science. To know more about the vision behind this festival, may I please request now Dr. Nakul Parashar, Director, Vigyan Prasar, to kindly render his welcome note. Dr. Parashar has been entrusted with the responsibility of propagating science and technology, communication, popularization, and extension across the nation and beyond the national boundaries. With his global experience, he has envisioned the role of science in common man's life with easier and understandable approach. Dr. Nakul Parashar, we all want to hear you now.
Thank you. A very warm good afternoon to one and all who've joined this edition of International Science Film Festival of India. At every ISF, ever since we've gotten started, we've been there with this Science Film Festival. I'm happy and glad to share with you that ever since our inception, Shri Nimish Kapoor, a close friend and colleague of mine at Vigyan Prasar, has been spearheading this mission. Over a period of time, we've noticed, we've gathered, we've gained a lot of experience and momentum that is required to make this festival a larger one from the previous ones that have happened. Number of entries, record entries that have been received are a manifestation of how we have gotten to this level. With the kind of love, support, affection from stalwarts from the industry and from people who've been not only movie buffs, but also have now started getting into film production, have been dabbling into film production for quite some time now. The number seems to be growing. Is it because of technology? Is it because of the challenges that one faces? Or is it because of the outreach that has grown over a period of time? If you look at reasons, if you look at whatever alibi that we can think of for the success of that has happened so far, I would credit to a combination of all. It's about the enthusiasm, it's about the spirit, and it's about the way we've all embarked upon this journey and changed ourselves to the changing technologies and changing requirements of our audience. I distinctly remember programs that aired on television, films of science that we used to watch in late 80s and 90s. We've come of age, a lot of things have changed, and so has the definition and parameters of adjudging what a film is. We've all been very enthusiastic about the film festivals that have happened in the past. Science film festivals have created a niche for themselves. And over a period of time, besides the India the National Science Film Festival that Vigyan Prasar has been organizing, and this year we had the 10th edition of it. This addition to the India International Science Festivals is something unique. I'm glad and I'm thankful on behalf of Vigyan Prasar to the entire team of this event that has been organized. And for this year particularly, when we had issues of not meeting in person, we've had just concluded our 10th Science Festival of the National Science Festival of India. And that was something that has, I'm sure, would have left behind a lot of experiences that would come in handy for the team which is organizing this event. So on behalf of Vigyan Prasar, on behalf of Vigyan Bharati, CSIR and the organizing committee of the India International Science Festival, I welcome you all and I wish this film festival a great success. The banner clearly reads the record number of entries that we have received, and I wish in the coming 3-4 days time, we'll all enjoy various films that we have aggregated from various places, and also to the films that have been adjudged by our eminent jury in the past few weeks. With this, once again, I welcome all of you and I wish this program a success again. Thank you so much. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you so much, Dr. Parashar. Listening to you is always insightful and learning. Science in films is an effective tool for science communication to foster and create the excitement of science amongst people at large. It also helps to inculcate a scientific temper among the audience, thereby shaping analytical thinking, a prerequisite for the inclusive development of nation. And vision of our Honorable Prime Minister is not less than the apex positioning of our nation in the world, in the domain of science. And we are fortunate to have our Minister of the Department, a man who is taking forward our Honorable PM's vision to new heights with every passing day. It's time to now hear Dr. Harshvardhan, Honorable Minister, Ministry of Science and Technology, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and Ministry of Earth Sciences, Government of India.
India is home to many talented filmmakers and science enthusiasts. With the International Science Film Festival of India, we seek to involve them in the process of popularizing science through films. A competition for Indian and international professional and student filmmakers has also been organized, inviting short films, documentaries, and animation films of less than 35 minutes of length, created anytime after 1st November 2019, on the theme Science for Self-Reliant India and Global Welfare, as well as Science and Awareness related to COVID-19 and other health emergencies. Internationally acclaimed and award-winning foreign and Indian films on science, health and environment will also be screened during this event to spread awareness about science and its advancements among the general public.
It's always inspiring to hear and learn from Dr. Harshvardhan, indeed a man who learned, loved, and living the science. India is land of ancient knowledge since always. What is an innovation for the world might be centuries old knowledge with our country. there is an important role of organizations and enlightened minds to contribute in bringing out this treasure in many capacities. Vigyan Bharti is certainly active in one such role. I now feel privileged to invite Sri Jayanta Sahasrabuddhe, National Organizing Secretary, Vigyan Bharti, to kindly share his thoughts.
नमस्कार, मेरे मित्र नकुल जी पराशर इस पूरे कार्यक्रम की योजना में जिनका बहुत बड़ा सहभाग रहा सूत्रधार इस नाते, ऐसे निमिष जी कपूर इस कार्यक्रम से जुड़े हुए विज्ञान के क्षेत्र में फिल्म को लाने वाले जैसे माइक जी पांडे है और अन्य ऐसे सभी फिल्म जगत के दिग्गज, ऐसे सभी को मैं सादर अभिवादन करता हूं, सभी का हार्दिक अभिनंदन करता हूं। 6वें इंडिया इंटरनेशनल साइंस फेस्टिवल के इस कार्यक्रम में जुड़कर मुझे बड़ी प्रसन्नता हो रही है। एक बहुत बड़ी कल्पना विज्ञान को लोगों तक ले जाना, ये इस फिल्म फेस्टिवल के द्वारा प्रत्यक्ष साकार हो रही है। हम सब जानते हैं कि मनुष्य के जीवन में और मनुष्य जिस समूह का अंग होता है, ऐसे समाज और देश दोनों के विकास में विज्ञान की बड़ी महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका होती है। विज्ञान केवल जानकारी इस नाते लोगों को पहुंचाना इतना ही नहीं, तो विज्ञान की दृष्टि लोगों में पैदा करना ये एक बहुत बड़ा काम है। विज्ञान की जानकारी लोगों तक पहुंचाई जा सकती है, लेकिन विज्ञान की दृष्टि लोगों के जीवन में उतारना ये बहुत सरल काम नहीं है। लेकिन फिल्मों के कारण ये काम हम संभव होता हुआ देख रहे हैं। हम सब जानते हैं कि अगर 100-125 साल पहले किसी ने पूछा होता कि क्या सपने खरे हो सकते हैं, सपने साकार हो सकते हैं, तो उसका निश्चित उत्तर था नहीं। लेकिन विज्ञान की जो प्रगति हुई है, उसके कारण आज हम निश्चित बता सकते हैं कि हाँ, सपने भी साकार हो सकते हैं। ड्रीम्स कैन कम ट्रू। ये विज्ञान के कारण ही संभव हो पाया है। विज्ञान के जगत को लोगों के पास लेकर जाना, इसके लिए फिल्म्स ये सबसे उत्कृष्ट माध्यम है। और अब विज्ञान के कारण फिल्म्स के अंदर भी कई प्रकार के परिवर्तन आ रहे हैं। हम सब जानते हैं कि विज्ञान ने जैसे मनुष्य के जीवन को आमूल बदला है, उसी प्रकार से विज्ञान के कारण विज्ञान प्रौद्योगिकी का उपयोग हमने जिस प्रकार से किया, उसके कारण कई प्रकार की समस्याएं, कई प्रकार की चुनौतियां भी हम सभी के जीवन में आई है। एक नई प्रकार की बातों का सामना हम कर रहे हैं और शायद भविष्य में भी इन सारी बातों को लेकर कुछ हमें विचार करने की बड़ी आवश्यकता रहने वाली है। ऐसे इस परिवर्तन के दौर में विज्ञान की बड़ी महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका रहेगी और मुझे विश्वास है कि फिल्मों के द्वारा विज्ञान की केवल जानकारी ही नहीं, तो विज्ञान की दृष्टि लोगों को देना ये संभव हो पाएगा और इंडिया इंटरनेशनल साइंस फेस्टिवल का ये एक महत्वपूर्ण अंग ये इस दिशा में सफल हो पाएगा और सार्थक भी हो पाएगा। मैं आप सभी को इस कार्यक्रम के साथ जुड़ने के लिए बधाई देता हूं और विश्वास है मुझे कि इस कार्यक्रम के द्वारा फिल्मों का विज्ञान को लोगों को पहुंचाने के लिए और अधिक सार्थक उपयोग कैसा हो सकता है, इसके बारे में मंथन इस कार्यक्रम में होगा और निश्चित ही ऐसी नई बातें उभर कर सामने आएगी जिसके कारण आज विज्ञान के विषयों पर जितनी फिल्म्स बनी है उनकी गुणवत्ता भी बढ़ेगी और उसके साथ साथ उनका परिणाम भी समाज में हमें और अच्छा दिखाई देगा। इसी एक कामना के साथ आप सभी को फिर एक बार बधाई देते हुए मैं यहां रुकता हूं। धन्यवाद।
आदरणीय, आपके सुझावों के लिए और आपकी मंगल कामनाओं के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. Imagination is more important than the knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world, Einstein said. And science makes us understand and helps in maintaining the circular relationship between knowledge, imagination, and action in better ways. We are now joined by a very special guest. I welcome Ms. Usha Bhasin, ex-ADG Doordarshan, former consultant, the World Bank, Washington, D.C., and is jury member for International Science Film Festival of India 2020. I request Ms. Bhasin to share her thoughts with us.
I thank the organizers to invite me for this very prestigious event and to be among the very accomplished panelists. Our guest, Dr. Huang from UK, and to share my views. I am proud to be in the midst of highly committed people of science fraternity who are working in CSIR, Vigyan Prasar, NCSTC, and the umbrella Department of Science and Technology, for the human service they are giving to this country. I say this in the national and global context. We all know India is a land of paradoxes where different centuries coexist, not just the different decades. We are leaders in some ways, but we are still struggling to eliminate poverty, reduce hunger, malnutrition, and the burden of diseases. In order to address these major Indian and global issues, our visionary leaders, they enshrined in Indian Constitution that every citizen is to be encouraged to have a sense of scientific temper, as enshrined in fundamental duties under Article 50AH, and it reads, "It shall be the duty of every citizen of India to develop scientific temper, humanism, and the spirit of inquiry and reform." If you look at the words of humanism, spirit of inquiry, and reform, it brings much bigger, larger, and deeper responsibility on the agencies that are engaged in popularizing science. In this context, I say that this fraternity of scientists who are working on Vigyan Prasar, NCSTC, and CSIR are rendering great service with their terrific commitment, honesty, passion, and discipline. And I also say this because today the need for scientific temper is far greater than it was 70 years back when we talk about the Constitution. I say it because today all the channels in this country, sadly, are doing the service to opposite. There are any number of channels and programs which are fueling superstition, which are curbing the sense of inquiry. Hence, this festival of films that brings the generally perceived science and dry and very complicated issues of science to the art of filmmaking gains far greater importance. And it is heartening that as a jury member, I was able to see how beautiful and how diverse is the community of filmmakers who have participated in this festival. right from remote hamlets of India's rural villages, small children, students, to the professional filmmakers globally. We had some beautiful programs and films to view. And it is again a matter of pride as a citizen of this India and as a student of science that the festival has grown phenomenally, not only in terms of geography, but in interest, depth, the understanding of our very, very burning issues of environment, water, etc. In this context, I really wish very sincerely great progress for this festival in the times to come, and it has great potential in impacting the minds, rural and urban, young and old, Indian and global. I thank you again for the opportunity that I've got to share my views. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And this year, International Science Film Festival of India has received huge participation of 630 films from 60 countries. Number of nominated films for jury screening stands 132. Now, this tells us the reach, the acceptance, and the importance of our very own science film festival globally. Now we have with us Dr. Mukesh Kumar, ex-ADG Films Division, ex-ADG Doordarshan Mumbai, and Dean for School of Branding and Advertising, NMIMS University, Mumbai, and our respected jury member for ISFFI 2020. Dr. Mukesh Sharma, kindly share your insights and thoughts on this occasion.
Thank you, Himaji. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all of you, especially Nimish ji, Nakul ji, Akansha ji, जो मुझे दिखाई दे रहे हैं, Mike sir, Usha ji, Himanshu ji, Sabyasachi ji, आप लोगों ने एक जिसे कहते हैं बड़ा मैसिव काम किया है, काफी बड़ा काम हुआ है, तो let me give kudos to you for it. But मुझे लगता है कि ये this is going to be a long journey. We cannot pat ourselves on the back. We need to do more and much more. This is what I feel, because जैसा कि अभी रीमा जी ने बताया 634 फिल्में आई, 60 देशों से आई, हार्डली 10-15% से ज्यादा मुझे नहीं लगता है कि बहुत अच्छा मटेरियल था. उसकी वजह क्या हो सकती है कि क्यों अच्छा मटेरियल नहीं आया? तो साइंस तो प्रोपोगेट आप कर रहे हैं, नो डाउट अबाउट इट, लेकिन साइंस में अभी तक ये क्लैरिटी हम नहीं दे पा रहे हैं कि हम सिर्फ फिक्शन की बात कर रहे हैं फिल्मों की, या सिर्फ डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज की, या बायोपिक्स की, या हम सिर्फ स्टिल्स लेकर के म्यूजिक डाल करके फिल्म बना दे रहे हैं, अपने बात को एक्सप्रेस कर रहे हैं. तो अगर वो एक्सप्रेशंस ऐसे चलेंगे तो हम अगली पायदान पर नहीं चढ़ पाएंगे, मुझे ऐसा लगता है, क्योंकि क्लैरिटी भी होनी चाहिए. अब एक मैं मिसाल के तौर पर एक लव लेटर एक लिखा था एक प्रेमी ने, जो कि साइंटिस्ट था, अपनी प्रेमिका को, और वो कितना समझ पाई देख लेते हैं. उसने कहा कि it has been an eon since my sensitive neurons last exchanged messages with my brains to email you. Your blue iris attracts me electrostatically, but the fear of your father repels me with proportional force. I want to hold you like a Venus flytrap holds an insect prey. Currently, a covalent bond exists between us. Through marriage, we will make it an ionic bond. And finally, he said, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Therefore, I hope the force of your love equals mine. तो उसने सिर्फ यही कहा, जाने तुम क्या कहते हो, जाने तुम क्या कहते हो, what you are saying. इडियट कहा है नहीं का पता नहीं. कहने का मतलब यह है कि क्या हम सिर्फ डॉक्यूमेंट्री बनाकर ही खुश हैं, या हमें आगे भी बढ़ना पड़ेगा. That is where we need to do. तो मुझे लगता है कि नकुल जी के लिए, निमिष जी के लिए और विज्ञान प्रसार के लिए पर से it's going to be, I think they should start taking the second step, which means workshops, conducting workshops throughout the year and telling them कि look, documentary के भी कितने प्रकार हैं. There are nearly 6-7 types of documentaries that one can produce. So accordingly, that direction has to be given by you now, because you have taken the mantle on yourself. And that's how these things will be able to help the young filmmakers. Otherwise, हर आदमी अपने हिसाब से कुछ ना कुछ बना के देगा और हम अगली पायदान पर नहीं चढ़ पाएंगे, जो मैं बार बार कह रहा हूँ, जिसके एम्फेसिस दे रहा हूँ. तो उसके लिए बहुत से लोग ये भी नहीं जानते हैं कि हमने जो डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज देखी हैं उसमें भी कितने प्रकार थे. तो अगर हम उनको वो डायरेक्शन दे देते हैं कि look, if you are going on a side where you are making a documentary which is observational, then you need to work like this. A small thing. If you are making a participatory documentary, then you will have to do more interviews, interview-based interaction between filmmakers, subjects, blah, blah, blah. Reflexive type documentaries बनानी है, the focus will be different. Performative है, उसमें कुछ और ही हो जाएगा. Filmmaker का involvement subject के साथ हो जाता है. Now, ये हमें उंगली पकड़ के उन लोगों की, स्पेशली नए फिल्म मेकर्स की, थोड़ा चलना पड़ेगा, ऐसा मुझे लगता है, अगेन वर्कशॉप से. और एक बात मैं आपसे कह सकता हूँ, एक किताब भी मैंने लिखी थी, इसका नाम था एबीसी ऑफ ब्रॉडकास्ट न्यूज. यहाँ महाराष्ट्र में गवर्नर ने उन्होंने किया था. अगर आपको मौका लगेगा तो आई ट्राई एंड सेंड यू द ई कॉपी. बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस होते हैं, जिन क्वेश्चंस को हम पिकअप करके फिल्में, स्पेशली डॉक्यूमेंट्री और स्टोरीज बना सकते हैं बेहतर. इमोशनल क्वेश्चन अगर है डॉक्यूमेंट्री का, तो पूरी डॉक्यूमेंट्री का इमोशनल क्वेश्चन का ट्रैक क्या होगा. अगर उसका समझिए क्या बोलते हैं, सेंसिटिविटी क्वेश्चन है, इट्स गोइंग टू बी डिफरेंट. शॉक क्वेश्चन है तो डॉक्यूमेंट्री दूसरी कहीं और किसी और रास्ते चलेगी. एक्सप्लोटेशन वाला क्वेश्चन है तो उसमें प्राइमरीली सेक्स और ये सब चीजें इन्वॉल्व हो जाएंगी. नाउ रेरिटी क्वेश्चन में, जैसे अभी आज की ओपनिंग फिल्म है, वो इट फॉल्स इनटू दैट. रामचंद्र वाली फिल्म, अपनी मिस्टर जी रामचंद्रन की फिल्म. सो फिल्म मेकर्स को मुझे लगता है कि एक और हमारा काम हो जाता है ये, इन एडिशन व्हाट वी आर डूइंग इज टू होल्ड देयर हैंड्स एंड टेक देम फॉरवर्ड, स्पेशली द यंगर लॉट, विद एटलीस्ट इफ नॉट मंथली, एटलीस्ट क्वार्टरली हम भी करें वर्कशॉप्स ऐसे ऑल इंडिया, और उनको इन्वॉल्व करें. वर्ल्ड वाइड भी तो कर सकते हैं, जब तक ये कोविड चल रहा है, अगले 8-10 महीने का सीन तो लग रहा है. वी कैन डू इट वेरी इजीली. आई एम गिविंग माई सेल्फ, आई कैन हेल्प यू आउट ऑन दिस. अगर मेरी जरूरत है, मैं 1-2 वर्कशॉप एज मास्टर क्लासेस ले सकता हूं उनको करने के लिए. बट तब मुझे लगता है कि अगला फेस्टिवल जब आपका होगा, यू विल बी एबल टू गेट एटलीस्ट शेड बेटर फिल्म्स देन दिस. दिस व्हाट आई एम सेइंग. नॉट दैट कि एक साथ परिवर्तन आ जाएगा, बट एटलीस्ट इट विल हेल्प अदर्स. और आपको भी कहने को होगा कि हमारे पास फिल्में थोड़ी पहले से डिफरेंट कैटेगरी का आई, क्योंकि इस बार ये समस्या हमने देखी थी कि द फिल्म्स मोर और लेस, एक आधी फिल्म थी जो अलग एकदम निकल के आ गई. अदरवाइज मोर और लेस सबका एक ही स्टाइल था. आई डोंट नो, मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल नो और डू नॉट नो. सिर्फ 5 चीजें अगर एक डॉक्यूमेंट्री में आप डाल देते हैं, ओनली 5. वन इज वॉइस ओवर, अदर इज वॉक्स पॉप, दैट इज वॉक्स पॉपुलर, पीपल्स वॉइस, जो एक के बाद एक आप करते हैं. क्वेश्चन एक होता है, सवाल आंसर बहुत से होते हैं. इंटरव्यू आप डाल देते हैं, आप उसमें एक एंकर डाल देते हैं और एक पीस टू कैमरा कर देते हैं. बिलीव मी, 10 में से 6 नंबर की डॉक्यूमेंट्री बन जाएगी, चाहे कितना भी ड्राई सब्जेक्ट, क्योंकि उसके अलग अलग फैसेट्स हमको देखने को मिलते हैं एक ही सब्जेक्ट के. अभी क्या हो रहा है, सिर्फ एक फोटो डाल दिया और वॉइस ओवर डाल दिया और खत्म कर दिया. कहीं से कोई इंटरव्यू निकल आया. अच्छा, दूसरा रिदम, सब डॉक्यूमेंट्स की रिदम भी है. नो डाउट वी लिव अ डॉक्यूमेंट्री, आई एम नॉट सेइंग दैट वी डोंट लिव, बट एटलीस्ट व्हेन वी गो बैक ऑन द टेबल, ऑन द एडिटिंग टेबल, we can give it some polish, some rhythm, जो कि थोड़ा सा क्रूड जैसा दिख रहा था. ये मेरे अपने ऑब्जर्वेशंस थे. ऑफ कोर्स मेरे यहाँ पर मेरे से बेहतर गाने वाले और मेरे से बेहतर सुनने वाले भी हैं लोग जो जानते हैं इस बात को, और मैं उनका आदर भी करता हूँ. बट ये मुझे लगा कि जो चीजें हम अगर इसको देखेंगे इस बार, अगर विज्ञान प्रसार इस दृष्टि से देखें, तो और बेहतर कर सकते हैं. इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ थैंक यू सो मच फॉर लिसनिंग टू मी.
थैंक यू सो मच मुकेश जी. और बदलाव, बेहतर सीखना, बेहतर परिवर्तन लाना, ये नियम है, सृष्टि का नियम है और विज्ञान का भी नियम है, और इसके साथ ही हम भी आगे बढ़ेंगे. और हम आपको बता दें कि अपने साइंस फेस्टिवल के लिए महानायक अमिताभ बच्चन जी को विशिष्ट रूप से आमंत्रित किया गया था. वो आना भी चाहते थे, लेकिन कुछ प्रतिबद्धताओं के चलते वे यहाँ नहीं आ पाए, शामिल नहीं हो पाए, इस फेस्टिवल में कनेक्ट नहीं हो पाए. लेकिन उन्होंने इंटरनेशनल साइंस फिल्म फेस्टिवल ऑफ इंडिया के लिए विशेष शुभकामनाएं और अपना संदेश भेजा है, जो मैं आप सबके साथ साझा करना चाहूंगी. द मैसेज गोज, respected Dr. Harshvardhan ji, thank you very much for your correspondence of 11th December 2020 and your kind invitation to be chief guest at the inaugural session of the International Science Film Festival of India being held on 22nd December 20 at 3 p.m. It would have pleased me immensely to have been able to accept this privileged invitation and encourage our building participating students. Regrettably, I am committed to a KBC shoot on the scheduled date and hence I am not able to accept. A video message, however, if permissible, could be arranged. My prayers and best wishes are with you all for the grand success of this very vital and promotional function for the progress of our nation. Sincerely, Amitabh Bachchan. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद हम देना चाहते हैं श्री अमिताभ बच्चन का और उनका संदेश निश्चित तौर पर उत्साह बढ़ाने वाला हम सबके लिए. And now we have a very special invitee who has contributed widely in bringing issues of global healthcare and films together. Dr. Oi Hong, President, Public Health Film Society, London. Mr. Hong is the co-founder and current president of the Public Health Film Society, a UK-based charity. He is also chair of the UK Faculty of Public Health Specialist Interest Group on Films. He has served as chair of the International Public Health Film Competition and invited judge for the Global Health Film Festival of the American Public Health. Mr. Hong, I request you to please share your experience, insights, and thoughts with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rima. And thank you very much, Nimish, for the invitation. It's a great honor to be invited here to the inaugural session of the Indian International Science Film Festival 2020. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate Dr. Naku Parasha and his team at Vigyan for their work in bringing this great program of science and health films together in this most trying of years, giving a platform to new and young filmmakers to show their talents in science filmmaking to the world, really, through this virtual platform, the largest of its kind, showing science film festivals. And, you know, they deserve great congratulations for all their efforts in doing this. But not just that. In fact, Vigyan Prasad has an unenviable reputation, actually, in organising film festivals. It's, you know, as I said, done 10 editions now of its National Science Film Festival, and, you know, the first edition virtually, which was a tremendous feat this year. I think those the aims that you outlined at the start of Vigyan Prasad, working hard to promote scientific thinking, scientific discussion, and most importantly, the production of quality science filmmaking in India, are some aims that are also shared with the Public Health Film Society, aims in trying to promote a scientific discourse around health and around public health matters. This is why the charity was formed, and this is why we're trying to bring this message out to a wider public. I mean, it's no more important than this year. This year with the pandemic, it's shown that the public has a vast appetite for health and scientific knowledge. And there is a real responsibility on us as scientists, as researchers, as policymakers, to ensure that there's clear and concise and honest information about science and health matters, so that we can really make a change, not just in this pandemic, but also in the health of our nations. The Public Health Film Society believes that information provided through film and by filmmakers can be a really, really important part of this process of fostering information and fostering better information and discussion about science and healthcare issues. We believe that the core challenge is actually not a technical one. We believe that the core challenge is really about bringing people together, It's about bringing people with different sets of skills, different sets of traditions, different sets of vocabularies, different world experiences together on film projects, often translating complex and technical messages into a compelling narrative for the viewer. The Public Health Film Society is committed to making this process of bringing people together a systematic process, a process that's evidence-based, a process that's transparent, and a process that is collaborative. You know, however, the promise of this is only going to be seen when we can see that there is actually a change in behaviors, that is actually has a measurable health benefit at a population level. And thus, as we sit on the cusp of 2021, and as we leave the pandemic of 2020 behind, we come into the largest, probably the largest global vaccination program that the world has ever seen, you know, to stop this virus. But more importantly, we come at the start of probably the largest health communications program that the world has ever seen. If we're going to try to convince our populace to take these vaccines to stop this virus, you know, filmmakers and health communicators are poised to be at the forefront of this effort. And I think that's the challenge that we face this coming year. And I think that's the challenge I think that some of the filmmakers here have started to address. And that's a challenge that we work hand in hand with Vigyan Prasad and all the filmmakers here to try to approach. Thank you very much again for your invitation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yong. And certainly health communication is going to take a better shape, much better shape, and is going to be of huge importance after we emerge, we come out of this pandemic. What we see and hear, it matters to us deeply. It not only stimulates our senses, but has potential to reshape our thoughts and actions. That's what cinema does. It mirrors our life. And when this mirroring is with reflection, color, and way of science, what it can do to a human mind. And this is what the International Science Film Festival of India is all about, to bring out science in every possible way of life. And who can better share this than the man who has spent all his life in understanding and decoding the dynamics of life, science, and cinema. Our festival's jury chair, Shri Mike Pandey, veteran filmmaker and environmentalist. Mike Pandey is a crusader for the environment and certainly one of the most acclaimed name globally, and working for endangered species. He's nationally and internationally renowned, acclaimed for his high caliber and powerful films. I now request Mike Pandey to kindly share his thoughts.
I hope you can hear me. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, we can hear you.
No. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, well, welcome to everyone, and especially my jury members and all the viewers. It's been a great privilege and a great honor to be part of the 6th International Film Festival, Science Film Festival, which has grown. Over 600 films from 60 different countries, and such a mixed basket. The jury had a tough time selecting the best among the best. There were many deliberations, many arguments, many points of view. But finally, I'm happy to say that there was a consensus and everyone approached. We were all unanimous in our decisions, and the best deserved films got prominence. But as Mukesh ji said, the numbers were great, but the numbers of films that stand up on their feet and deliver effective communication were few. There's a great need for us to perhaps, what he's mentioned about having regular classes in training youngsters or filmmakers into the skill of scientific filmmaking, simplifying, reaching people, making films engaging. Many films that we saw were great topics, but they were not engaging enough. They fell by the wayside because they were either stretched too long or not effectively communicated. And this is the problem with especially the construction of the film. The other one is the technical aspect. You know, it's not just a question of putting a microphone and recording an interview and you've got a voiceover. Sound plays a great important role, maybe 40%, when it goes towards making a film, it goes towards the structure of the film. So these parameters have to be seen, kept in mind when forming, crafting a film, especially on a specialized subject. And for that reason, hand-holding, as once again, I'll go back to Mukesh, it's so important to lead you, even professional filmmakers from Bombay. You bring them here today and put them in the documentary genre, which is a tough genre. Because nothing is rehearsed. You pick up actual realities, put them together, and tell an interesting story. So right from storytelling, interesting, engaging storytelling, because you have to keep in your mind the multiple layered of audiences that are going to see that, right from the policymakers to the common man to the youngster, whom you need to influence. You draw their attention with engaging visuals, which they will see. And then once they're engaged and hooked, then you pour in the gyan in doses in which they can assimilate. Otherwise, the films fall flat. You can make a great film about gravity, but if they're not visually interesting, people will just go to sleep. So therefore, my request is really, 6th International Science Film Festival is a great success, by viewing by the number and the films that we have seen, reflected by the interest from all over the world. It's become a globally engaging festival, important, and draws a lot of attention. There is need to take the next step forward, training, and then we need to have, really, I'm very serious about this, a channel, a science channel dedicated to science matters. So there we can go by this science in cookery, science for the farmer, science for the students, or the college students, or the policymakers. Or even in the evenings, perhaps, scientific films, feature films perhaps, that talk about imagination and fiction, about the future, projecting us. Those are so important. Then you're really serious about creating a scientific temper. You are catering to all sections of society. A channel is not a big thing because you will be engaging, empowering, building capacities of over 1 billion people in India, reaching out in small doses at various sections, trained and actually crafted to suit, whether it's a young school time, 10 or 11 or 12 in schools, primary schools, or the farmer in the afternoon when he's having his lunch. Thought must go. I think a committee needs to be formed by the ministry to bring like-minded people together who can come in, give their inputs. And we are, I'm sure Mukesh will back me up, and all the jury members, we will give our shoulders. All of them were such powerful, experienced filmmakers and with a heart. And that's what matters. You need to be passionate about what you're doing. It's not just putting pictures together and writing a script and say da, 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 and then you're done. No. It's like having a meal without any salt in it. How do you hold your audience? How do you sink and affect, touch their minds and hearts is the way to make films. Many films were so dry and drab, and I mean, okay, they fell by the wayside. Many films that are too long could have been compressed into half the size and would have effectively spoken about the message and got the message through. There are many films that impact you, you never forget them. They're life changers. So we need game changers. And for that, we need to build them. We need to nurture them. And filmmakers like us and jury members like us are ready to come and hold those workshops, speak, and share whatever we know, whatever we learned. Challenges in the future are going to be great, bigger than these. COVID is still here, and it's not going to go away in a hurry. These films empower people, train people, inspire, motivate. We saw many films from rural areas where small farmers, illiterate, have come together, started protecting water, started drip irrigation, revival of grains that we had forgotten. That's the type of information we need in science films. And science is everywhere, in everything, whether it's watering of a plant or nurturing or harvesting at the right time or sowing at the right time. So my request really is, again, why I'm repeating myself, please think of a science channel completely dedicated, and then India will change. There will be people who will be crafting these specialized programs, and their input will be valuable. I was looking for a film on Sir Jagdish Chandra Bose, and I couldn't find it. Today we are speaking, thanks to him. The rover in Mars reacts to Houston turning a few switches, thanks to Jagdish Chandra Bose. How many of us talk about him? There has to be pride. We have pioneers. Look at Ramchandran. Films like these need to come up and reflect.
Sir, your voice is muted. Kindly unmute it.
Could you listen to me earlier? Then it went on by, I think, default. Maybe they didn't want to hear me too much.
We
Just
missed the
last
part
few
after
seconds.
Bose.
No, otherwise we were listening to you.
Okay, I think we need to have the ministry really making capsules on all these great scientists, engaging ones, and keeping this to motivate and inspire our youngsters. When will we know about Jagdish Chandra Bose? How many people know about it? Everybody thinks of wireless and all those things, and you go to Marconi. But the first man ever was Jagdish Chandra Bose. Where is it? Where's the Science Channel talking about it? So there has to be a section for such films where we talk about ourselves so that we can feel proud of our heritage and lineage. We need a special, since technology has improved and taken quantum leaps, we need a special segment for animation films. There are brilliant films, and I spoke to Mukesh about it, about a fighter and a youngster doing. I mean, okay, it looked like a game, but he adapted. He created that. And this is one of the first time I saw on big screen exactly what he had done. So we need special sections for those, and a special wild section where anybody who has got some thought can put together a film and bring it out. Let us motivate these youngsters. They are the foundations of tomorrow. Vigyan Prasar has a very crucial and important role to play. Nakul Parashar spoke about it in the beginning, that this is the effort. It's a great effort in the right direction. Your wonderful, great team. Nimish has been stuck to this festival right from the beginning, and he's been a father figure to this, and it's grown up into a great festival today all over the world, not only nationally. The second question, lots of people ask me, "Are science film banadi?" Okay, we are done with it. No, if you make an effective film, why do you make films? To share knowledge, to share information, to inform, to train, to build capacities, to create general awareness. That's why we make films. So I'll just give you an example of what effective films are. I made a 12-minute film once, about 20 years ago. It was about whale sharks. When nobody in India believed me about whale sharks being killed in India, none of my colleagues from Discovery, BBC, and National Geographic, they laughed at me and said, "Whales in India? Are you crazy?" And I went and made a film called Whale Sharks in India. And when the film was shown, it brought about tremendous change, not only at the grassroots levels with the fishermen who understood the role the whale shark played, but at the policy level. And the law came into force. The whale shark was protected under the Wildlife Act 1972. Similarly, on a global platform, we got only 3 votes out of 186 when we asked for the protection of the whale shark. The world was unaware of what was in our backyard. And the largest fish in the world was being killed. We showed the film and we got overwhelming majority. And the fish, the largest fish in the world, the whale shark, got protected all over the world just because of one film. And even today, there's a demand from many countries that can we have a copy of that film? We want to show it to our people. It's the most powerful conservation film to date. A film that saved a species from extinction, according to the UN note. But it is embedded in people's mind. Films have to be sensitively made. You need to sensitize people. Then it's effective communication. India needs science. India needs good science films. And we have great scientists here. And it is time we pulled our socks up and gave it the priority, the emphasis, and the money it needs. We need to bring in together young science makers who are passionate. We need to encourage them, give them some grants, scholarships, and really build an army of science filmmakers. Finally, I'd like to thank all the jury members for their amazing inputs and for the experience which they brought to the table, and for being so patient and also finally resolving and coming to a fair conclusion कि हाँ ये तस्वीर ये film अच्छी है इसको मिलना चाहिए. Sometimes we were in a tussle, but fortunately we found a way to honor the films that deserve to be honored. Once again, Vigyan Prasad, thank you very much for the support and for the warmth that you gave the jury members and all the fellow members, and all the jury members for taking time and coming here and giving your shoulder to what really is a national mission. For that, I'm personally grateful to you, and thank you for the engaging time we had. Only thing is we're still waiting for the samosas.
Thanks, Mike, for the wonderful insight. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. And your expertise, your advice, and it's always solicited. Thank you so much. As they say, your perfect little arrangement of atoms. Efforts are individual. We need to put them together for a meaningful result. Science teaches us the same thing with unlimited lessons, and how we are going to make it the learning better to leave a wonderful legacy of humanity, and life will define our efforts after that. And now it's time to invite Sri Nimesh Kapoor, science communicator, scientist in Vigyan Prasar, a veteran media personality, convener of International Science Film Festival of India, and heading Science Film Initiative, to kindly render his vote of thanks.
Thanks, Rima. Respected Mike Pandey, Shri Jayant Sahasrabudhe ji, Shrimati Usha Bhasin, Dr. Mukesh Sharma ji, Dr. Yoi Huang, most valued science filmmakers, friends from media, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to propose vote of thanks on this occasion on behalf of organizers of India International Science Film Festival of India 2020. I would like to thanks to all the guests and jury members to having taken time out of your busy schedule and be amongst us today. Your presence has been inspiration for all of us, for all of our core team and coordinators. Sir, we do truly feel inspired on the occasion, and we hope to achieve greater heights in future. I'm sure that after watching world-class science films screened at festival, our budding filmmakers learned the best from creative and technical parts of the film on science, environment, health issues. This year, a record number of 634 entries from 60 countries were received, and 210 films from 31 countries were nominated for screening. We would like to express our sincere gratitude for our special invitees, panelists, and experts for master classes, panel discussions from UK, Netherlands, Switzerland, Deutsche Welle, Germany, and other parts of the world, Israel. On behalf of organizers of Iisf, I would like to thank members and chairperson of jury for having awarded and selected films of Isffi Best Science Film Awards in 2 competitive categories for foreign filmmakers and 4 competitive categories for Indian filmmakers. Sincere thanks to chairperson and members of jury, Shri Mike Pandey, Dr. Mukesh Sharma, Professor Danish Iqbal, Ms. Usha Bhasin, Shri Himanshu Malhotra ji, Dr. Sunil Mehru, Ms. Monica Gulati, Ms. Akansha Damini Joshi, Dr. Shobhana Chaudhary, in dedicating their time, precious time and efforts in watching hundreds of films and their exemplary judgment in selecting of best of science videos. Congratulations to all awardees. Awards will be announced on 25th of December at 1 p.m. by our chief guest, veteran filmmaker Mike Pandey sir, in the presence of all the jury members. So please wait for next couple of days. I thank the embassies and foreign collaborators for all their resources, sharing their resources to ensure the success of Isffi. Our sincere gratitude to Dr. Ranjana Agrawal ji, Director CSIR Stats, Dr. Nakul Parashar ji, Director Vigyan Prasar, and Shri Indrajit Singh ji, Registrar Vigyan Prasar. Without their support and guidance, this event would not have been a success. Senior officials of Ministry of Science and Technology, Ministry of Earth Sciences, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and Vigyan Bharati, my colleagues from NISTATS, NISCARE, Vigyan Prasar, and all committee members, volunteers who work day and night to ensure the success of festival. My sincere thanks to Iisf Organizing Secretary, Dr. Arvind Ranade, Film Festival Coordinators, Dr. Parmanand Barman, Professor Abhay Bhamaikar, Dr. Chitra, and core team of International Science Film Festival of India, Vigyan Prasar Festival Manager, Mr. Sabyasachi Bharti, Ms. Chavi Bhatnagar, Mr. Chandan, and for their continuous hard work of many days, nights to make the event successful. I'm thankful for my media team, India Science Wire team, Shri Santosh Pandey, Uma Shankar Mishra, Jyoti Singh, Ramanshi Mishra, and PIB Media Coordinator, Ms. TV Padma, Senior Journalist who is covering this festival. And finally, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being here today. And it's an honor to have you as our guest and partnering to achieve goal of the International Science Film Festival of India to engage citizens with science in ways that are inspirational and empowering. Thank you once again. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nimeshji. And now it's time for the screening of inaugural film, The Trials and Triumphs of G.N. Ramachandran, a film from India and directed by Shri Rahul Iyer and produced by Shri Vivek Kannari and Science Media Center, IISER, Pune. The Ramachandran map is regarded among the fundamental concepts in biology. This is a documentary on the progenitor of this map, Shri G.N. Ramachandran, and his fascinating career, who decoded complex structure of collagen and has made significant contributions to the field of medical imaging. In this, filmmakers met with his family, students, co-workers, and unbiased experts in the field to explore his life and impact of his work. So enjoy this film. This is the inaugural film of the festival, and with this, the festival stands open. Namaskar.
The early 1950s was a defining period for Indian science. Scientists and administrators set about to lay the foundations of a blooming landscape of science with 2 goals: to fast-track the development of the state and to play an active role in the global endeavor of science. In 1952, C.V. Raman, one of the greatest Indian physicists, received a letter by A.L. Mudliar, who was the Vice-Chancellor of Madras University at the time. Mudliar intended to build a physics department in Madras University, where world-class research would be conducted. Naturally, for such a Herculean task, Professor Raman was his choice. Raman wrote back suggesting a candidate as good as himself, yet much younger. In October 1952, Gopala Samudram Narayan Iyer Ramachandran arrived at Madras University as head of the department at only 30 years of age. Each of his greatest contributions would be career-defining for any scientist. He discovered the molecular structure of collagen, outracing elite scientists who had previously sought to discover the structure of DNA. His research on anomalous dispersion and computer-assisted tomography set the early stages of Nobel Prize-winning research. And his crown jewel, the Ramachandran map, is a fundamental tool used by hundreds of thousands of biologists worldwide today.
You have to give G.N. Ramachandran great credit because Ramachandran actually created a first-rate environment.
He always felt, I think, that we should be as good as anybody else in the world.
You could be competing with top-end international groups, but you should have the courage to do that.
Ramachandran and team did not complain that, they don't have computers to do it, they don't have facilities. They just wanted to do it.
Somewhere around there is when he started developing some psychological problems. With all that he was managing, none of it stopped his work.
In Madras University, 1952, I chose X-ray diffraction and X-ray spectroscopy in particular as the main theme for the laboratory and the applications to biomolecule as the main aspect of this field that is to be pursued vigorously. However, I did not know where to begin and on which molecules and biopolymers were the most profitable ones to study. The problem was resolved with happy coincidence when visiting Professor J.D. Bernard to Madras during this time.
John Bernal was a British crystallographer and an important figure in the early development of structural biology. The problem of the structure of collagen was a hot one, and there was a race between top labs in Cambridge, Caltech, and others to solve it.
When I put this question to him, he told me that he was not very happy with the various structures of collagen had been proposed in the literature at the time, and that the problem was wide open.
But why were researchers who solved the structure of DNA after this protein? For one, the problem was considered to be tougher than DNA. And secondly, even among proteins, collagen holds an important place.
Collagen is a building block of all the cellular material.
If you take the total body of a human being or any mammal and take the water out, the most abundant protein is collagen.
The bone, the cartilage, the tendons, they're all made out of collagen. It's a highly talented molecule. It can bend, it can twist because it can adjust itself to the surrounding pressures. People have now realized the utility of collagen for several practical applications.
The autoimmune diseases of collagen which are non-killer, like arthritis. Burn injury is very common in this country. Ulcers. There is a disease, Cephalosporin imperfecta, with just replacement of one glycine by an alanine. The longest life people live is 12 years. Can the society afford not to understand the genetic diseases of collagen, enforced by structural biology of collagen, and live with it?
You have to give G.N. Ramachandran great credit because, when he went back from Cambridge to Madras University, he, had to basically start up things from scratch.
So, the very first set of equipments at the Department of Crystallography Biophysics, they got the equipment, but he had to assemble them.
He was a very hands-on person, and he built his own X-ray crystallography machine and things like that.
I don't think we can divide Professor Jaina's work as, this is theoretical, this is experimental, this is computational. He was somewhere along rolled up into one. And
he was going to be the only person in that department. Everybody else was a student. And of course, built up the staff slowly.
It was done in splendid isolation. I mean, it could be seen as an advantage also. He was not biased by the thinking process coming from the West. He probably enjoyed, among the disadvantages, an advantage of being able to be very, very original in his work.
So for him, everything was a picture, everything was a 3D image in his head. That, to me, was his major strength. He could visualize, and he could come up with answers long before he had the maths to codify it and put it down in a paper. And then, of course, he'd drive his students mad trying to get it just right.
Helping Ramachandran in this quest was a bright PhD student named Gopinath Kartha. So to start out, Ramachandran had to find a sample of collagen. Fortunately, right next to his department was the newly opened Central Leather Research Institute. Ramachandran went over to talk to their director, Dr. Nayadamma.
Professor Nayadamma, as a leather technologist though, he realized that what Professor Nayadamma wanted is a pure sample of collagen. Then he said, why don't I go and collect kangaroo tail tendon? Nayadamma went to Australia for some meeting and collected a sample of a kangaroo tail tendon, put his coat pocket and brought it to this country. And had his colleagues purified for him.
Even if one does get pure collagen, you need to place a hair width sized piece in front of the X-ray. A camera might take a second to click, but X-rays could take multiple days back then. The X-ray pattern is like a negative, except it's just a few dots. An X-ray crystallographer tries to develop this into a picture using complex physics and mathematics into human-size models. At a time when solving the structure of 100-atom molecules was a considerable job, solving the structure of a 10,000-atom protein was absolutely monumental. Ramachandran and Kartha spent months trying to get a decent X-ray pattern. Once that was ready, they began to construct the model. But if the other models were interpreted with similar X-ray patterns, how could Ramachandran and Kartha develop a better model?
Kartha and Ramachandran proposed a triple helical model for collagen. That's the first time that anybody said that the collagen is a triple helical coil structure.
It was novel in several ways. One is a single strand of protein winding around a left-handed man, and 3 such coils winding around each other in an opposite-handed manner.
We used to make fun of the triple researcher of collagen structure. He got the inspiration from the rope the women used to get water from the well. Once I asked him very gently, where was the inspiration from? And he says, the manner in which the celestial bodies move around each other. He saw a helical modeling, and that's what he said was his inspiration.
The breakthrough to the collagen problem coming from Madras University took the structural biology community by surprise. Ramachandran and Kartha's model of collagen soon gained fame as the Madras triple helix. For Ramachandran, the victory was more than about solving a difficult problem. His incentives were deeply linked to his 3 gurus.
So he said that he had joined the electrical engineering department in IISc to do PhD. And then somehow Raman and he got in touch. Once he and Raman had started interacting, this is what my father says, he went to the head of the department of electrical engineering and said, Ramachandran is wasted in your department, I'm going to take him off your hands.
It was under Raman that I think Ramachandran's talents and interests in optics and crystallography really grew.
When he went to Cambridge, what he found was biology was in the air, because they could see that they had a set of tools in physics, and the tools could be applied to better understand biological systems. It was the biggest, the greatest group in the world at that time. So he also joined it.
During his second PhD in Cambridge, Ramachandran worked in Cavendish Lab, which was run by William Lawrence Bragg. He also got a chance to interact with a visiting professor from Caltech, Linus Pauling. Interacting with two of the greatest scientists of that time would deeply influence the young scientist. And so Pauling and Bragg were pioneering scientists who began to study biomolecular structures, also saw the emerging importance of proteins and nucleic acids in biology. They engaged in a friendly rivalry at the prospect of making history. The first race they embarked on was to describe the structure of the alpha helix, which shapes a vast number of proteins. Pauling and his team won this race in 1951. The next exciting race was for the structure of DNA. Members of Bragg's team at Cavendish Lab, James Watson and Francis Crick, would vindicate him in 1953. A couple of months later, J.D. Burnell informed him that the teams of Caltech and Cambridge, among others, were now chasing the structure of collagen. This was his opportunity to etch his name in history alongside leading scientists, synonymous with early structural biology. Alongside his mentors who inspired him to pursue the study of biomolecular structures. But alas, his victory was short-lived.
Subsequently, there was a paper in Nature by Crick and Rich, which said almost right at the beginning of the paper that the Ramachandran and Kartha model is wrong. They found that the atoms in the collagen model proposed by Kartha and Ramachandran, some of the non-bonded atoms are too close to each other. So the assumption at that time is that they can come closest to the sum of their van der Waals radii.
Right from the time when the alpha helix and the beta structure for proteins were published by Linus Pauling, the assumption was that when these structures are forming, they have to be the most stable possible structure. So they brought the three helices together a little closer than what.
In a private letter to Ramachandran, Crick and Rich acknowledged that your type of structure was on the right lines and that the collagen problem has changed completely as a result of your work. The Ramachandran-Kartha model was the first instance that collagen was proposed to be a coiled structure. This was the key feature of the structure that the other groups had not deciphered. However, within months, other groups also published coiled models for collagen.
There is a controversy about that paper because apparently the Nature sat on it for a long time and they gave access to that work to the group Rich and Crick, who were also working on collagen structure at that time. And all they did was just a little bit rearrangement of these helices to get rid of these short distances. So with that they could make it a little looser structure. And they actually published that paper almost simultaneously with the Madras group paper. And that kind of became more of the accepted structure.
Sitting in India, you have no power in all this. So you just have to swallow your anger and put a brave face and smile.
Coincidentally, Gopinath Kartha was in London at the time, and his letters to Ramachandran shed some light on the matter. Ramachandran's paper was sent back for revision, and according to Kartha, the general idea seems to be that the publication of our paper was purposely delayed by months for them to work up an idea after seeing the manuscript.
By today's standards, that would have been extremely unethical. But at that time, they did such things.
In those days, communication was absolutely almost zero. So it's not like, you're exchanging mails or picking up the phone and talking to people. Even your journals would take 3 months to come because they would come by sea mail and things like that. And it's again not a rigid structure. So what you see is sometimes what is the Ramchandran structure, and you see sometimes what is the Rich and Crick structure. So it varies a little bit. I mean, the difference between the two structures is so little. But the basic idea about the triple helical coil structure was Professor Ramchandran's. There's no doubt about it.
During such tumultuous periods, Ramachandran had to rely on his constant pillar of support, his wife Rajalakshmi.
Somewhere around there is when he started developing some psychological problems. Manic depressive features were there. And that all fell on her shoulders. He was regularly going to a psychiatrist and maybe psychologist also, and getting treated. I mean, huge number of drugs. When he took these drugs, he said, my mind is not sharp. Right? At that point in time, I think my mother was of the opinion that all the sharpness is enough. You've done good work. Now just become calm. With all that he was managing, none of it stopped his work.
As Ramachandran obsessed over his discredited Madras triple helix, he decided to do the unthinkable. He decided to challenge the knowledge of molecular physics. And what followed was nothing short of revolutionary.
It was just his boldness. All of us who worked with him, I think that was one thing we picked up from him, that you should be able to question everything which is there and to explore new ideas and new problems. And if you think something is right, just go and do it and stick to it.
And in asking the question, I think Ramachandran and his colleagues came upon what I would call a profound organizing principle of protein structure.
He started an experiment to look at the basics of protein structure. The millions of proteins found in nature are all made from the same 20 building blocks called amino acids. Each protein has a unique combination of amino acids which determines the structure and properties of the protein.
I think the major principle to understand here, if I have two atoms, there's only one parameter which I can measure, which is the distance between them. If I now have three atoms, I can now measure 2 bond lengths and 1 bond angle. But now when I have 4 atoms which are connected to one another, now you can see I have introduced the element of 3-dimensionality. So I am now rotating about a torsion angle. This is what in the polypeptides we call the Ramachandran angle phi or psi. So when you deal with torsion angles, you're actually dealing with a 3-dimensional parameter. And this is what makes them so powerful.
They considered a minimal system of peptide. It was like the Crick and Ridge. They also assumed the shortest approach between 2 non-bonded atoms is the sum of their van der Waals radii. So they wanted to generate all possible 3-dimensional arrangement of this by making full rotation about phi, about the NC alpha bond, and full rotation about C alpha C bond. And for every pair of phi psi values, you have the spatial arrangement of atoms. They checked all the non-bonded distances. If the sum of the van der Waals radii is shorter than the actual distance, then they consider the phi psi to be disallowed. Ramakrishnan, who was my thesis advisor, and he did his thesis with Ramachandran, and Ramachandran map was his thesis work. He has to calculate the non-bonded distance between all pairs of atoms, all pairs of non-bonded atoms, and then check each one of them with the contact criteria, whether it is phi psi values allowed or not, to decide. This he has to do for every single one of 360 into 360 combinations. And all that he had to do this work was a calculator of the present day PC size, and which can do only 4 basic operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. There is no memory location. You can't store the number. And it has no trigonometric functions. It's not a scientific calculator. So for trigonometric function, he has to use a book called as Clark's tables. So you can imagine him painstakingly punching the numbers in the calculator and then writing down the result in his notebook and then re-punching the numbers back into the calculator to do all these calculations. Kept them going. And so Ramakrishnan told me that it took him from morning 9 to evening 6, 7, every single day, 1 full year, he didn't give up. Such a marathon exercise, numbers after numbers after numbers, to complete all these calculations. And interestingly, the result they have got is no phi psi value is allowed. That is an absurd result. Because proteins are existent, peptides are existent in living systems. They should have some phi psi value. If you do some work and then say that no phi psi value is allowed, then proteins and peptides cannot exist, and you and me cannot exist. The Crick and Rich assumption that non-bonded atoms cannot come closer than the sum of the van der Waals radii is clearly wrong. And then how do you get the actual, the shortest approach distances between atoms? So the Madras team, especially Professor Shashi Shekharan, they looked into the crystal structures of small molecules, organic compounds.
They found that even in small molecules, the distance is about 10% less than the sum of their van der Waals radii. They call it the contact criteria. So they call this as, freely allowed or fully allowed contact distances, and then they call something as a partially allowed contact distances.
So Ramakrishnan did all the calculations again. Then the rest is history.
There were problems in the early days of crystallography, especially at resolutions which were marginal, where some very incorrect structures had been produced. So when you solve your structure, one of the first things you do is see what the Ramachandran plot looks like and see if all your amino acids are in allowed conformations rather than disallowed, because a disallowed would mean that atoms are bumping into each other and it's not a reasonable structure.
But in my view, the Ramachandran map was slightly ahead of its time.
When Ramachandran and co-workers proposed this phi psi map, as they called it, and foreigners called it as Ramachandran map subsequently, no globular protein structure was available, done to validate the collagen structure. Obviously, now if you calculate the phi psi values of the collagen model as proposed by Kartha and Ramachandran, they fall beautifully within the allowed region.
They were lucky that the first protein structure came out, myoglobin, in 1962-63. They were able to get the phi psi values of that structure, and when they plotted it on their map, they found that 99% of the phi psi values were actually lying within the region, and there were few which were outside.
So that was a day of elation for Ramakrishnan, Ramachandran and Shashi Shekharan. The first time any protein structure was validated using the Ramachandran map. There are a number of great features about it. The first and foremost, it reduces the three-dimensional complexity of proteins and peptides into a two-dimensional representation, which is more easily perceivable by the human mind. The second thing is, according to Ramachandran map, roughly about 30% of the phi psi combinations are only theoretically possible, and remaining 70% is not possible. This is a great input for those who wonder how proteins fold.
Probably, if today we talk about bioinformatics as an area, perhaps he's the originator of bioinformatics in that sense, through his so-called Ramachandran plot.
The original Ramachandran plot was produced by using physical models from styrofoam or other kinds of plastic. But in mid-80s, I think, the computer graphics began to be sufficiently advanced, sufficiently powerful. The analysis and visualizations of protein structure implemented through computer graphics. Structural bioinformatics in particular was absolutely enabled by the protein data bank.
Anywhere around the world, when they submit coordinates to that data bank, and the phi psi values, at least 99% of them have to lie within the allowed region of the Ramachandran map.
Today, several hundreds of thousands of protein structures have been determined, and every protein structure has to pass GN Ramachandran test.
As Professor George Rose in Johns Hopkins wrote in one of his papers, the Ramachandran map is one example where if an experimental result, which is a crystal structure of a protein, is not in agreement with Ramachandran map, which is theoretical work, then you don't suspect Ramachandran map, you suspect the crystal structure.
Through the 80s and 90s, the use of the Ramachandran map spread like wildfire. His protein structure failed a test, so he created a test for every protein ever studied. Alongside his study of protein structure, Ramachandran also worked towards improving crystallography techniques. He found a way of applying a new concept called anomalous dispersion to X-ray crystallography.
You can think of a crystal as a big thick wall constructed from bricks called unit cells. X-rays are electromagnetic radiation. They are waves, so they have a particular wavelength. The wavelength is comparable to the unit cell size, whereas light has a wavelength which is hundreds of times more than the unit cell size. So we say light is not diffracted from crystals, whereas X-rays are diffracted. Whereas when the wavelength of X-rays approaches a particular limit, an atom may scatter it somewhat anomalously.
But Ramachandran was one of the first to use it to actually determine the structure of a compound. And so today anomalous scattering is very, very widely used.
This technique was developed further and became the topic of the 1985 Nobel Prize in Chemistry. In 1971, during a brief stint at the University of Chicago, G.N. Ramachandran got the opportunity to work in developing a technique called projection reconstruction, which is using a 2D X-ray image to develop a 3D image. This concept proved to be the key in the development of computed tomography. This would be the subject of the 1979 Nobel Prize in Medicine. In the case of both anomalous dispersion and computer-assisted tomography, Ramachandran's contributions could be seen as key pieces to the larger puzzle. But this was indicative of his knack of recognizing and pursuing research at the forefront of his field. This earned him and his department a great deal of recognition.
In modern India, that is in post-independence India, he demonstrated that the highest level of science could be done, and it could be done in a place with rather limited facilities.
In fact, we had to go to Guindy Engineering College to use IBM 1620 computers. We used to get about 5 minutes, 6 minutes of time every day.
Ramachandran and team did not complain that they don't have computers to do it, they don't have facilities, they don't have money, and they don't have model kits to do all this. They just wanted to do it with whatever little they have.
Ramachandran, by creating the Department of Biophysics and Crystallography, created his own environment.
For a while, it was really on the map in the world. People, very famous people, Linus Pauling or Dorothy Hodgkin, they would come there for conferences.
Generally, it was conducted abroad. But he used to attract the scientists to Madras University, and we'll have a grand meeting of several Nobel laureates.
Imagine Nobel Prize winners being brought to Chennai city, all in one day in one platform, and the kind of influence it produced on the teenagers.
The research environment is quite important. It means that you have colleagues who are doing excellent work.
Professor Pauling came as a Sir C. V. Raman chair of the Madras University. This professorship was created by Professor Ramachandran in the University of Madras in honor of his guru.
In the olden days, Madras University referred to as a Cambridge of the South.
And he attracted the brilliant students to the department. It was only his personality that he could attract all the brilliant students.
For a towering researcher, but it did an upwelling of the science in the campus. He created an atmosphere where the science was at its best.
The research environment created by Ramachandran would not be possible without the enabling administration of A.L. Mudaliar. And he certainly held up his end in making his department a center of world-class research.
And very often I've heard this term being used that Professor GNR was like a son to Dr. A.L. Mudaliar, because yes, there are rules and to be followed and everything, but Dr. Mudaliar will go out of his way to ensure that none of those really stopped him from his research.
When Mudaliar's term ended in 1969, Ramachandran decided to return to his alma mater. Under the support of the director of the Indian Institute of Science, Satish Dhawan, Ramachandran founded the Molecular Biophysics Unit in 1971. He recreated an environment of excellence, as graduates of this department can be found in almost all structural biology departments in India. The impact of Ramachandran's body of work is present around us to this day. These earned him a number of accolades, including the Ewald Prize, the top prize in crystallography, and the Fellowship of the Royal Society. He was nominated for the Nobel Prize thrice. One of those nominations was made by C.V. Raman himself. But this honor proved elusive.
It's not something worth losing sleep on. But did it affect him? He never said so. For Phi-Psi plot, this is what I hear. It's a great piece of work looking back. But at the time that it was done, it seemed like a very abstract piece of work, not particularly useful because you needed to have a huge computer before you could start using it. It's there in the textbooks, so I think that's good enough.
The Ramachandran map was there since I can remember anything about proteins. There's not that many findings that stay at the top of introductory courses, but the Ramachandran map is.
Scientists mentored and inspired by him still carry his influence.
He was here in Chennai. We used to meet Professor Ramachandran periodically. Even at that age, I think he was 75 maybe, he could think of new ideas, discuss it very well.
It would have been 91 or so. He came and visited me. He was busy going and meeting a professor in the US to convince him that a particular piece of work he had done was actually very significant for biophysics and all that. So, I mean, he was a driven person even then.
Indian science lost a great warrior in April 2001. But along with his remarkable contributions to science, Ramachandran also has one of the greatest stories in Indian science. The story of a man primed for scientific greatness, who would not only overcome many adversities, but also turn some of them into his greatest achievements.
Hope you enjoyed this masterpiece. और एक बार फिर से आपको एक बहुत जरूरी सूचना to apprise you all that Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, will inaugurate India International Science Festival 2020 at 4:15 Indian Standard Time. India International Science Festival is biggest festival on science in Asia and an umbrella event under which you are watching International Science Film Festival of India 2020. Now, platform for ISFFI is all there for you. Enjoy best of science, cinema, masterclasses, and discussion. Do watch our panel discussion at 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. This panel discussion is on the subject Indian international efforts to promote public understanding of science through films, challenges, and opportunities. We have our esteemed panelists from Germany, different parts of South Asia, London, and Israel. And now this festival is open for you all. Enjoy. Thank you. Namaskar.
Hi, I have a question. How do I change the background? I can't see video settings anywhere.
Are you talking to me, Akanksha?
Yes, Mr. Sabyasachi. Where do I see the video settings?
In the when you go lower, you will find the start video thing. Are you seeing the start video?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Now I see it. Video settings. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
In a start video settings, you will find a change background. Choose your virtual background when you click on the arrow. From there, you can choose.
I will request all the participants and guests to kindly switch on the videos so that we can know that you are present. Hi, Dr. Hong. How are you? Nice to see you again.
Fine, thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing the virtual background.
Yeah. Hi, Brigette. How are you? Your voice is muted. The sound.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes. How are
So
you?
great to see you.
Same
virtual hug.
How's everything going?
Yeah, I have quite my heartbeat still going because I was running with this, I had to update my computer. And unfortunately, all these Word and Excel documents files don't work anymore. So I couldn't open anything. And I was hesitating to bother you guys with sending a link simply through WhatsApp to receive, that. So I'm cooling off and cooling down.
We are always here to help you. No problem.
All the elephants. Besides the rest, everything is fine. So how are you doing?
We are doing fine. It was hectic, preparing everything for the festival.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Hi, Mr. Karthik. How are you, sir?
Hello. Nice to meet you. Sorry, I don't know how to work out the wallpaper. Is that okay?
If you want, there is start video icon.
Start video icon?
Yeah. Just next to start video, you can see arrow sign.
Well, the video started, so I don't see any.
No. If you hold down your cursor a little bit.
It's the stop video. You see an arrow next to stop video?
Yeah. Video settings?
Yes.
Okay. And then where do I go?
You click the arrow sign which is next to the video.
Yeah, I got that.
Then choose virtual background.
Background and filters. Okay.
Yeah, so choose virtual background.
Virtual background. Okay. Cool. Let me figure myself.
Hi, Andreas. How are you? I'm unable to hear you. No sound. Can you hear me? Yeah. How are you? No, I'm still unable to. We are unable to hear a sound. Something with your mic.
Sabyasachi, shall I change the background as well? I didn't.
No, it's all right. If you want, you certainly can change. Otherwise, it's okay.
Is it okay? Yeah. Okay. Then fine. All right. Because that will bring another obstacle, I'm sure. So we better. Just bizarre.
We are Nautiyal Saab. If you are ready, then we can start the session.
Is it hello?
Hello, how are you?
Hello. Is it possible to record the session? Can you open up the recording option?
Yes. Once the social will, it's already recording. It's on recording mode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And we can't record it, but you are recording it, I understand.
Yes, and we will be more than happy to provide you the recording once.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Dr. Saab,
Yes.
Dr. Saab, with your permission, can we start?
Yeah, we can start. Has Dr. Parashar is there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, very good evening to everyone. I welcome you all in the panel discussion, India International Effort to Promote Public Understanding of Science through Films, Challenges and Opportunities. We are very happy that we have with us Dr. C.M. Nautiyal, Program Consultant, Science Communication, India National Science Academy, New Delhi. And he is kind enough to accept our request to moderate the session. So now I will request Dr. Nautiyal to kindly introduce all the panelists and start the session. Thank you, sir.
So much, Mr. Sabyasachi. We are really happy to have a distinguished gathering here, thanks to Dr. Parashar and Mr. Nimish Kapoor, who have made it possible to have this assembly of luminaries here. And the occasion is the India International Science Festival in its 6th edition, Iisf 2020, as it's popularly known. And today we are talking about the science films. As you all know, that Vigyan Prasar has taken a lead, and they have been organizing the Science Film Festival, and this time it is as a part of ISF 2020. We have with us a number of experts whom I'll be introducing when I ask them the questions, and they will be talking. The first speaker will be Dr. Nakul Parashar. We also have Mr. Karthik Sharma, we have Mr. Andrea Zevels, we have Sai Abhishek, we have Dr. Yu Huang, we have Madam Akanksha Sood Singh, and we also have people from Rama Marinev Cohen. She is also a filmmaker, and we have with us Ms. Bridget Utar Korneski. We also have with us Mr. Mahesh Jha, who is an Indian but in Germany. So this is indeed an international gathering, and as the title suggests, Indian International Efforts to Promote Public Understanding of Science through Films, and we'll be talking about the challenges and opportunities. So I would first invite Dr. Nakul Parashar to tell us, particularly Dr. Nakul Parashar needs no introduction to this audience, but he's director of Vigyan Prasar. As an editor to several popular science magazines like Computers Today, Vigyan Pragati, and Naturopathy, Dr. Parashar has also been the chief scientific editor with several research publishing service companies all over the world, and also in India. He has been a university-level researcher and has also taught at the university level physics and computer science to undergraduates as well as the postgraduate in the famous Delhi College of Engineering, which is now known as Delhi Technological University. Launching of India's national science OTT channel, India Science, and India's national science and technology news agency, Vigyan Samachar, in the past 18 months since joining as director of Vigyan Prasar. There have been quite a few noteworthy achievements, and there are many examples of that, of his leadership he has provided to Vigyan Prasar. So I would like to talk to Dr. Nakul Parashar, who is basically a physics person. And we have seen that Vigyan Prasar has been growing the leaps and bounds. But what is the latest feather? In particular, I would understand that India's science OTT is fully functional and getting popular. So Dr. Nakul Parashar, please tell us something about the achievements of Vigyan Prasar, the role in promoting science films, and the latest OTT platform.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much, and a warm welcome to everyone out here. It's very nice to see all of you active, smiling, safe and healthy. And I wish we all stay safe, healthy, smiling, and we keep on with our mission as we've been doing earlier as well. And I'm sure there have been a lot of deliberations recently now that we think, and we all have gotten a little, bored with these all measures that we have, and we're now actively looking towards the other side of the pandemic. So, and that is where ever since we coined this, ever since you gave this idea to the Secretary, Department of Science and Technology, he has been quite gung-ho about it. He has been talking about this in our DST, for the matter, has been celebrating its 50th anniversary, the Golden Jubilee anniversary, and in which we are having discourses. So every discourse that for past 3 or 4 discourses that we have organized, we've been talking about the other side of the pandemic. And when we say on the other side of the pandemic, it gives a ray of hope. It gives all of us to think out of the situation that we've been living. And I can understand Brigitte would be a little sad for not having visited India for almost like 7 to 8 months, and would be certainly missing her elephants and her others that she has been really working very hard. So a great pleasure to see all of you here. And Dr. Nautiyal, thank you so much for your kind words, for your kind introduction. I'm really honored, touched by your support, encouragement you have rendered to the organization. Vigyan Prasar, of course, during past 2 years now that I've completed my 2nd anniversary with Vigyan Prasar, we've tried to do whatever little we could in our efforts to move beyond science and science communication and popularization. We have also moved into something which the word Prasar in Vigyan Prasar stands for, which means extension. I grew up in an agricultural university, and that is where I've seen how agricultural extension works, how people from lab move out to the land to work with farmers to make them understand all those possible hands-on techniques that can help improve their cultivation, improve their practices, help them improve their livelihood and their lifestyles within the villages. So having inspired from that fact and tried to connect with the word extension Prasar here, this is what we've gotten into in last 2 years. There's been Vigyan Prasar, for that matter, has been into existence for last 30 years, somewhere in October 12th, to be precise, 1989 was when Vigyan Prasar was born. So we've crossed our teenage, we've moved into our youth now, and we are 30 years old plus. And that's a time when we are at the prime of our youth, and that's the time we should be galloping towards newer milestones, acquiring them and moving pretty fast. And in this course of action, I truly appreciate the efforts of my colleagues who've worked very hard, my predecessors who've gotten me Vigyan Prasar in a form that helped me move forward. So in fact, for me, the job was quite simple. All I had to do was to give it a little push from here and there and give it a new dimension to it. And fortunately, by everybody's support, help, and grace of all those best wishes that we have gotten, I think we've done reasonably okay. And in this course of time, the first thing that we got into was we used to have a program called Science in Film, Science on Television. And we all know, we've all seen how OTT technology has overtaken all other means of infotainment and entertainment as well. So that's where we took the cue, and we started with Doordarshan, which is the Indian national broadcaster. We got a slot on their national channel. We worked for a year and a half, and then we realized that they have their own priorities, and they came back to us and said, look, science and technology are good, but they are dry and drab. We have a very limited viewership, and we've got much more interesting things that our people would want to watch. Fair enough. That gave us all the reasons to get into OTT. And that's how India's first science and technology OTT channel called India Science got launched. So I'm sorry if I sound like a salesman here, but I would want all of you to, if possible, download the India Science app and benefit from a huge repository of content that we have developed, some of which has been there earlier as well. What all that we have done is we've rehashed it, re-churned it using whatever blenders that we had, and we have poured it into a new bottle. And I'm sure the taste would be much better, because it's much better than a 12-year-old. So anyway, having said this, more and more, because what has happened is over a period of time, I'm sure all of us from media, from television, would agree with me that as technology has advanced, challenges associated for filmmakers, people in media have also increased. The attention period of each of us, whether it is a science content that we are watching or a non-science content we are watching, unless it is engrossing, unless it keeps us captivated, we tend to either forward it to somebody or we just leave it as it is. As a result, what happens is it becomes much more interesting and challenging for all of us in the business of science, filmmaking, science media. So with this, in last 2 years, Vigyan Prasar has produced more than 2,000 films for the OTT channel. And in this course of time, we also realized that science and technology, on one side, while we are trying to make it more interesting, it is also important, and it's our duty to ensure that the news that gets, that comes out, that emanates from laboratories, should reach the science media. In order to do so, there was a missing link, which is like a conduit that used to provide news to the media in a form that they can easily publish. We all understand that our scientists do dread from a thought of writing popular science articles. It is because they've been so engrossed in their research that all that they understand about science, it becomes challenging for them to make it understandable to the masses. They say if we try to do so, they either dilute the topic or they are unable to convert the intricacies of science into a much easier format. For that matter, films and television become an important channel to do so. But so as I was saying, it was very much needed that there had to be an entity that could become a syndicate where news from all different places in India could be aggregated. And in this process, that's where we set up India's first news agency, science and technology news agency of the country, which we've called as the Science and Technology News of India in English and Vigyan Samachar in Hindi. Of course, we did have a small project where we used to collect, aggregate news, but we used to do it in a very small manner, in a small scale, which was called the India Science Wire. So for the moment, India Science Wire does exist, but it actually is gradually getting converted into STNI, which is the science news. India, we all know, is a huge country, has so many languages, so many diverse cultures, people from different, in each of these languages, there are so many different dialects, and it's very important, unless we communicate with our fellow beings in their language, we'll be unable to do our responsibility, which is also enshrined in our constitution, to ensure that our masses do understand science and technology dissemination is a responsibility that each of us as our citizens of India have to comply with. So with which we also started something called Vigyan Bhasha, or the science language for in different Indian languages. We started with something that we could do while sitting back in New Delhi, where our headquarters are. And this was in a language called Urdu. And we came up with a monthly newsletter called Tajassus, which is called which is called Curiosity. Story doesn't end here. We moved on to West Bengal, started working in Bengali, and we started to produce a monthly newsletter, popular science monthly newsletter called Vigyan Katha. Down south in Tamil, we started Arivel Palagai. In Kannada, we started Kutuhali. And this is how we're moving rapidly, trying to cover almost every language that we can. Besides this, Vigyan Prasar over the last 30 years has been producing very interesting science books, which is, and we are proud enough to have a long list of 300 titles of original written books. None of them are translated. These are all original written books. Besides which, we also have translated works from the famous books that have already been published. So print, electronic, social, digital, all four media is what we've tried to move out of our science communication and popularization. And that's how we're gradually getting into extension, where we're taking all of these to the masses. Toys and kits, do it yourself kits, and umpteen other workshops, training workshops, lectures, seminars, conferences on a regular basis, where we bring in a lot of people with an aim to help our masses understand how important it is to communicate, how important it is to popularize science. In order to get away with a myth that science is dry and drab, we've taken examples from the success stories from the West, and that is how the topic of today's deliberations here does talk about international relations, and in which how we've all benefited. I really want to, laud efforts of my colleagues, particularly Dr. Arvind Ranade, who had started this science film festival culture in our organization way back. And then it was taken over by Nimeshji, who's been handling it successfully for past so many years. This year, our bags were packed. Interestingly, we were all set to go to Tripura, far east state of India, where we had planned for our 10th National Science Film Festival. Everything was done, and it was just at the nick of time that we were told that yes, you just can't go because lockdown is about to get started. Nimeshji and myself, we were both very excited, and I could remember how Nimesh was persuasive to see, because he said tickets have been booked, we'll do all best we can, we'll cover our faces, we'll cover ourselves, but we'll go. It was like, somebody, I wouldn't equate him to a kid asking to go for it, but it was the passion that he had to bring, because he had done all that was required. Jury had done its job, films had been set aside. There were a lot of international films that we had received from other consulates, embassies all over the place, and his continuous efforts to aggregate, pull all those films together had almost been there. And he was very excited because far east, the state of Tripura is famous for its natural beauty, and he was very happy that all those people whom he was trying to fly down to Tripura, Agartala, the capital, they would have really benefited. They would have really liked and loved, and it would have been a great fun at that point in time. Well, his indomitable spirit to fight came up, and we spoke. As soon as lockdown got over, things started to settle down. He came to me, we discussed and talked if we could do it virtually. And then it was at that point in time, India International Science Festival 2020 was about to be announced, and it was decided it's going to happen in a virtual manner. So that was a blessing in disguise, something that I think Nimesh was waiting for. And he said, why don't we do it in a virtual manner? That would be a precursor to today's International Festival of India. So having done that quickly and very efficiently, gave Sabyasachi, Nimeshji, and Nimesh's team all that power and MO that he needed to do it in a very successful manner. Today's platform discussion where we were all together clearly exemplifies his spirit to have it done in a very nicer manner. And I'm sure all of you would agree with me that the kind of spirit with which he's been doing this is really commendable. Last year, we remember, Brigitte, we met in Kolkata, and at that point in time, there were different events that we at Vigyan Prasar, we were the nodal agency to organize it. Despite all odds, even if it was, say, about 10 kilometers away from the main site, I somehow could not manage. It was shame that I couldn't be there. But then I came to know from everyone that it was a successful event. All of us who had attended it really liked it. And for that matter, I think there are many more points, achievements, milestones that we are proud to convey, that we have been trying to cross through, and then we have set many more in the times to come. There's enough. There's still a lot that I can go on and on and on, but I think it's very important to ensure that Vigyan Prasar's motive and ambition is to somehow ensure that science films do take prominence, and with the OTT channel how fully functional, I'm sure festivals of this kind and a lot of platforms where films that have already been screened here can be taken to that platform, and with which the kind of audience that we are looking at, the numbers that we have already touched, we have crossed few millions, and our thought is to go beyond it. I still remember, way back in 90s, Pepsi in India used to have an advertisement which used to say, "Ye dil mange more." This heart really wants more and more. So we with this kind of support that we get from all of you, I'm truly inspired, touched, and moved, and I feel we can still do a lot, and we expect that your blessings, your support, love, affection, and encouragement would always be with us. I truly want to thank Dr. Nautiyal for giving me this opportunity to get me on the pedestal one to convey my thoughts for a plain and simple reason. Today is December 22nd, the birthday of a famous mathematician, a legend called Srinivasa Ramanujan. We had started a Ramanujan Yatra on April 26th. Exactly 100 years ago, he had passed away. So from his death anniversary centenary to his birthday today is what we had organized a series of lectures. And I'm glad to share with you that about 7:30 today, one of the field medal is like Nobel Prize in mathematics. So 2014 awardee, Professor Manjul Bhargava from University of Pennsylvania has accepted to speak. So that's another small responsibility that I have. I'm going to be here up until clock strikes 7:30. So, and would love to hear all of you. So thank you once again, sir, for giving me this opportunity. And we are so glad and feel very blessed and honored with your support that you've given to Vigyan Prasar. And we, at times, whenever we need support, we, we've now become a very integral part of our family. We look towards you, and with the kind of responsibility that you've taken to chair this session, I really want to thank you from entire Vigyan Prasar and the team that has organized this Science Film Festival. And I'm sure all of us here would also agree with me that Dr. Nautiyal, whatever said about him is very little. The kind of experience, the kind of knowledge, and the kind of discussions if you have with him, you'll find are very interesting. And he gets to the bottom of it and explains it in the most simplest manner, which is a live example of a very effective science communicator, and something that I always been saying, in a world that we might have formal schools of training of media and other things as well, but what's most important is by virtue of experience. It has taken me 54 years of my life to understand this, right? So I truly want to thank all of you for patiently hearing me, and I'll be here. I'll be around till 7:30. So please forgive me if I hop off to the other lecture at about 7:30. Thank you once again. Thank you so much. Jai Hind and Jai Bharat. Sir, you're muted, sir.
You have given us insight into the working and functioning of Vigyan Prasar, wonderful organization you are leading from the front. Thank you so much for this. We have 8 more experts, so I think it will be all right if each one of us takes 8 to 10 minutes to complete one statement, so that we are left with some time for combined discussion at the end. 8 minutes is what I think would be the ideal time. Our next guest is Mr. Andreas Zewels from Germany, ZDF, and he is a German filmmaker and film director. He was born in 1969, and he studied in a beautiful city called Cologne. I have been there, and then he studied at Los Angeles. He has been producing documentary films on a variety of subjects, and for the last 30 years. His work focuses on nature and environment films, and he received numerous national and international awards for his films. And he's also the director of the largest German nature and travel film festival. I hope I'll pronounce it correctly. It's Naturale, and also works exclusively for the largest broadcaster in the Germany named ZDF. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Mr. Andreas, from the beautiful city of Cologne and the wonderful country, Germany.
Thank you very much for your kind words. Do you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, excellent. So first of all, let me thank you that I can be a part of this panel. It's a great honor for me. And you said a lot of kind words, and I also can say some kind words because all that I know so far about your festival sounds great. You have a fantastic program, so I'm really happy to be here. Thank you. So yeah, you talked a little bit about what I did in my life. I'm actually a filmmaker since now 30 years, and since 20 years I work together with scientists because I do most of my documentaries together with scientists. And that's one part of my job. The other part is being the head of, or the director of Naturale, the film festival. And I also work with scientists there because we have a special award for scientists who made films, and we give them this award. Actually, I like to say that the award ceremony, maybe it's interesting for you, it's one day after your award ceremony. It's on the 26th of December, and we will also give some awards to the scientists taking part in this award ceremony. And yeah, when I do documentaries, it's really interesting because first I just went with scientists around the globe to their places where they are doing their field work and everything. And they talk to me like they normally talk to students. And if you talk to students or to people who are just in your, let's say, in your cloud, then you have a special language. So I had to learn that they have a very special language. And this language, most of the time, is not really easy to understand for just normal people. And for me, it's very important that, like, the ordinary people watching the documentaries on ZDF, that they understand everything, that they get the full picture. Because I see myself now more like a translator. So from the language of the scientists to the to the language of the normal people. And what I do now is actually that I sit down like 1 day or 2 days before we go on a trip together with the scientists to find a common language that is still on a level that the scientists like to have, but also on the level that the people can understand. And when I do my documentaries, we are not like going with the scientists to like their office or the laboratory or everything. We try to go out in the field. So if we have a scientist who is in charge of, let's say, pythons, we went with him to Malaysia and he talked with us about the pythons in Malaysia. So what is important is not only the language, it's also the picture. And what we try is to get the full picture. That means we take the scientists to the places where they sometimes never went before. It's part of their science, but sometimes they didn't go on the field. As you probably know, some scientists are working in their laboratory, in their office, most of their life. But of course, the adventures are out there. And so what we like to do is we take them out in the field, do our documentaries all around the globe, and then find a common language for the normal people and for the scientists as well. And that's mainly what I do. And so I see myself, like I said before, more like a translator. On the other hand, it's really interesting when we go now to Naturale Film Festival and we have the special award, then we see how scientists do their films, and it's completely different. Sometimes it's so far away from what normal people can understand, so you can't even show them in the cinema because people are sitting there, okay, what are they talking of? And but there are more and more scientists are coming up, understanding also the language of the media or how to communicate with the audience. And that's really interesting. This year we had one film from the US, which was, or it's called Black Suns. It's about scientists traveling to see the solar eclipse. And it's really interesting to see their point of view. It's completely different, of course, like when we all see a solar eclipse, it's more like, wow, fantastic. And from their point of view is more like the science view, but it's also interesting and it's a completely different perspective. So yeah, let's come to the point again. I think as a filmmaker in science, you have to be a translator as well. It's really important that people understand what all these really good scientists are doing, also especially in this time of COVID. I don't know if you had it in India. Sometimes you have people who don't trust in science anymore, but it's very important to get the facts from science, to talk about them, to discuss about them, and to get a final solution. So people have to listen to the scientists, and we try to help the scientists that the people understand them. Thank you.
Thank you for this beautiful introduction. I just was curious to know what do you believe? Is science able to change the science programs or science films? Are they able to change the thinking or the attitude of the people? Do you know of any example particularly?
Yeah, well, I do science and nature films, and that's a question journalists or filmmakers ask each other very often. Is that really possible? And that's why I'm running a film festival, because if you do it in TV, you don't see the reaction of the people. And in the film festival, we have our film festival every 2 years. So the last one was in 2018. It was really interesting to see the audience and the reaction of the audience. And of course, after that, they talked about the films. And yeah, I think you can open their minds. I don't know if you just directly change them. And I don't think there is really the need to change them. But I think the most important thing is to open their minds, to get open for new ideas. And that's what science and science films can do.
Thank you so much. And we look forward to you talking to you again at the end of this program if time permits. And we will go over to our next expert, Mr. Sai Abhishek. Mr. Sai Abhishek is director of the Original Content, Factual and Lifestyle Entertainment South Asia Discovery Incorporated, Mumbai, India. He has had various creative roles. He has done, in fact, many hats in the last 13 years and has worked with many organizations and many networks and has been involved in many of the TV documentaries and so on. He has led and produced tentpole shows and documentaries which have created record both in terms of viewership and as a campaign at a national and international level. This includes some very interesting shows like Discovery's Man vs. Wild, and he has dealt with people like the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, superstar Rajinikanth, Bill Gates, and so on. So I will not take much time in introducing him. You would hear him for yourself. So I invite Mr. Sai Abhishek to us.
Thank you, Dr. Nautiyal. So kind of you to kind remarks, and thank you to all the panelists also. It's I think this is my first panel, to be honest. We don't really attend panels and discuss in such nice gatherings, but I mean broadly, I mean before I go into challenges and opportunities in the system. So my background is also in the last 10 years or so, I've been working at National Geographic, and we launched History Channel in India. We launched Nat Geo Wild. And then, yeah, in the last many years, I've been at Discovery, and again, having many roles. And Discovery, as you probably all know, has been in India for about 25 years now. And this is the 25th year of Discovery in India. And having been the first international broadcaster to have come making and showing global films in science, natural history, and all of the other genres that Discovery does to an Indian audience and in this region. And since then, we've come a long way, I think, both in terms of the media ecosystem and also as viewers. And me being a product of that time, also have grown up looking at shows like this and content like this, magazines. And why I mentioned my own background in a sense is because I feel, and now before I go into that, basically now we've also launched our own OTT product, just like Mr. Parashar mentioned. It's called Discovery Plus. And again, we're seeing a lot of trends, and we see people being hungry today, not just on the TV side, but also on digital platforms, as you know. People need content. They need to know what is authenticity, and there's so much fake news out there. They don't know what to believe in, what to not, and they look at networks and credible experts to sort of present the facts in the most sort of entertaining way, but also in the most simple way, which they can trust and believe in. And because those lines are blurring now in the world that we live in, and so networks like us play a very important role, I feel. And where I'm going with this is basically the challenges and opportunities which I just thought I could probably touch on in my own experience working on the field, be it with acquiring content or creating content, producing, commissioning, or programming all these networks at Discovery, Animal Planet, all of these networks. I feel if you look at science programming itself, I feel like a product of the system, someone like me, could have been taught science a little bit more in an engaging way, perhaps. It could have been more fun, and maybe not, and I rightly agree with Dr. Parashar, and it needs someone like a Dr. Nautiyal to be able to simplify and make it interesting for students. And I feel in India, there is a need to make science more fun, and at a very early age for that talent to grow into this industry in a form in the future. And I think the challenge and opportunity both have to be the talent, I think, because then I can see one of my good friends, Akanksha, also on the panel, and she's one of the very few people in the country actually making natural history films at a very international level and quality that not only stands the test of time in India, but also around the world. And we need more people like Akanksha, and more people to come into this industry. And I'm telling this purely as a challenge that I face, because the talent pool that we interact with is limited in India. And oftentimes when we look at, say, Europe, and I can see some panelists from Europe or in the US, there are enough producers, factual producers in science, natural history. There's just in that genre of filmmaking. In India, it's limited to a handset of people, and then with a handset of broadcasters. And now, thankfully, the OTTs have come in, so there's slightly more, the ecosystem is growing. But we need for that talent pool to start very young, so that science is more fun. They question the natural world, the things around them. And that scientific thinking, I feel, needs to go into children. And that becomes, and it's very easy to then teach them the techniques of filmmaking. That's the easy part. You don't need a big education in filmmaking. It's actually the research, the writing, the interest, the reading, ability to, to make science fun. I think those are the things I feel we should be investing in. And then, of course, there are networks like us to pull all those people in to make all these films. And and I feel this is the best time for for people in the region in India to be making films of any sort, and especially science, natural history films. We're making tons of them. We're speaking to lots of producers in India, and we're hungry to commission the best quality programming for not just India. And we put out our shows in not only in India but all around the world. So we are seeing that it's the right time to tell stories from India and transport them to the rest of the world. It's 25 years now, and I think we can now do these things at scale. And that's my wish for whoever is listening in on this panel. Yeah. Sorry, I think you're on mute, sir.
One of the difficulties which the science filmmakers they face in India is how to get the material, because scientists don't like to communicate with the filmmakers, and filmmakers also hesitate in approaching scientists. So how to break the ice?
I guess excellent question, and I think the answer lies somewhere between a person like an Akanksha, who's of course with the knowledge and yet interfacing with the commissioners, broadcasters like us, but also I feel bodies like bodies like yourself over here should be doing get-togethers, with media people like myself, and I can certainly rally with my peers in the other networks, and we really don't consider anyone as competitors or anything like that. So we can all rally together and actually discuss on panels like this or on separate groups. And we were going to be honest, I can reveal on this panel that we were going to create a big discovery event this year, and because of COVID we had to scrap it. It was to be early this year, where we were going to invite like everyone in the whole country to just come to these big cities and attend, invite filmmakers, experts from all around the world to be a part of these something like this, but in real, and show films, have film festivals, give out awards exactly like this. And I think somebody will have to take ownership of bringing both bodies together, and also get the schools in. I would say get the schools and parents in, because I feel that's a big need.
Thank you, Mr. Abhishek. Thank you for this beautiful presentation. And at the end, we'll come back to you for if there are any further questions. You mentioned Akanksha ji just now. So I think that we will now move over to Akanksha ji. And Akanksha ji is a veteran filmmaker, and her main interest has been in science filmmaking related to conservation. She has taken a lot of interest in documenting some of the species which are going extinct, which are endangered, or which are gradually vanishing from this earth. And conservation has been her main interest. In her own words, she wants to bring a change, bust myths, showcase the incredible diversity we live with, and ignite hope for the future. This is more for the next generation, the future custodians of this heritage. How will they emphasize and protect anything they don't see? We want them to grow up with pride, empathy, and responsibility towards the environment. And thus, the first step is to knowing what the natural world holds. And that's why she believes in documenting what the nature offers to us. She has won hundreds of awards and nominations. It includes 3 national awards for her films given by the President of India. She has also won a UN Film Award, and recently the Global Icon for Mass Media 2020 and the Diversity Leadership Award 2020. She is also one of the juries for the International Emmy Awards in the documentary category. I would invite Akanksha ji, who has combined science and filmmaking so expertly.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nautiyal, and everybody on the panel. I'm very honored to be here, and thank you for my introduction. I've been a natural history filmmaker for almost 20 years now, and in the course of these 20 years, I started off early on in my career working a lot with Vigyan Prasar actually, and did a lot of documentaries for Vigyan Prasar. So science, I have been a science student, and when I started my career in filmmaking, Science was one of, hard science was one of the first few subjects that I dealt with. And then obviously moved on to natural history because that is where my passion and interest lied. I think coming with a science background and being a storyteller has really, really helped me in kind of being able to communicate about the natural world, about the animals, and about conservation, and packaging all of it very interestingly. I have always believed that no matter what your subject is, what your topic of the film is, whether it's hard science or it's a specialist genre like wildlife, if you make it very interesting, and if a small child, a 8-year-old or a 10-year-old, can understand it and sit through it, you will be able to reach out to the whole world. It just has to be very, very fun and interesting. The way television, or the way programming is changing rapidly, mostly because of the advent of OTT, traditional television is taking a backseat. If you see, in a way, non-fiction is what this genre comes under, is competing with fiction. And I feel going forward, there is no harm in picking up ideas and picking up treatments from fiction and adding it to your non-fiction treatments and making your films such that you can actually put it, on any television or any OTT platform for that matter in today's time. Talking about, the challenges in the 20 years, I have worked with a lot of scientists. In practically all the films that I have worked in, I have always dealt with scientists. Either they have been the face of the films that we are working on, or they have been, the backbone in terms of providing us research and inputs to our scripts, because they have to be factually correct. You do take creative liberties, but films have to be very factually correct. So I've as Dr. Parashar had said, scientists do shy away from, talking about the science. They also probably don't have the time. And you have to be able to, that's one of the biggest challenges, when it comes to science communication, to make a good film. Are scientists in India willing and able to talk about their science? No, bringing out a research paper is one thing, but it has to reach to the masses. And either you simplify the research paper and write a popular science article, or you tell a story through a film. It doesn't have to be a big film. It could be a 5-minute film or a 10-minute or a 7-minute film. Today, in today's time, there are avenues available for all kind of lengths of films. The second thing I want to talk about is the creative storytelling part. If you see, traditionally in our country, science films have been extremely drab. Their production values have not been very good. I personally feel that a lot of them tend to be PR pieces for the funding organization or the institution, or from where the scientists come. And it's filled with a lot of interviews of people just explaining things to you, versus, visual representation of the science, of the action that everybody wants to see, whether you create it in the lab or use animation. And that brings me to the point that you really need good budget to be able to tell the story very, very creatively. All these years that I have been working in science communication, I feel in India especially, the budgets are extremely limited, and as a result of which, you do end up making the film, but the creativity gets compromised, your production values get compromised. Today, thanks to OTT platforms and social media, we have a lot of avenues to release our films, but we need someone to fund them, fund them that they're at par with what you see of films at the international levels. And that's very important. So yeah, that's what I feel about, what the challenges are. Opportunities, I say, the picture has drastically changed. There are a lot more networks now looking for science programming. There's Discovery, there's Curiosity Stream, which is an OTT platform. Now the government has their own channels, but everyone wants good storytelling. They want interesting films that will pull in the viewers and subscribers. Otherwise it's pointless. Your content just gets lost in the mass of content that gets released every second, whether it's online or on any platform. So you're on mute.
Yeah. So you have presented some very good views, and I think you have some background in science too, and that's perhaps the reason you have been able to depict science through the camera also. So thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. And just now, initially we had people who were not from science background perhaps. Then we moved on to somebody who has a background in science. But our next expert is still yet a more surprising personality. He is basically a doctor. He's a science graduate, an MBBS from London, and then studied MPH at Yale, and then he also did MD. So he is Dr. Yu Huang, and he's a co-founder and current president of the Public Health Film Society in UK, which is a charitable organization. He's also the chair of the UK Faculty of Public Health Specialist Interest Group on Film. He has served as chair of the International Public Health Film Competition and was invited judge for the Global Health Film Festival of the American Public Health Association. He's a specialist advisor on a number of groups, and he works as a research fellow at the University of Oxford in the Department of Primary Care Health Sciences. And he believes that the general public's appetite for health and scientific knowledge has never been greater, and responsibility for ensuring clear, concise, and honest information about health matters could not be more important as the pandemic has demonstrated. I think anybody would agree. Pandemic has again brought in focus the importance of communicating science, whether it be of life, whether it be of taking medicine, whether it's about a cure or precautions. I would invite Dr. Yu Huang to please address us. Dr. Huang.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Nautiyal, and thank you very much to Vigan Prasad for the kind invitation to attend the panel. It's a very impressive panel you've got here, and actually a very impressive program you've got for the entire festival. Commend you on all the work, and especially Nimesh and the team that have done this tremendous job. I thank you again, Dr. Nautiyal, for the kind introduction. I think the little bit that you missed out is I've also come from a background of journalism, and added to that with my public health research and practice work. I think that's where my comments are sort of originating from. Dr. Prasad summarized the work of the Vigan Prasad over the last 30 years, which is really truly impressive body of work. And I think the Public Health Film Society, in comparison, is a mere toddler. We've only been around for 6 years, so we really look up to the work that you guys have been doing. But I think apart from that, I think we do share very, very similar objectives. We really want to inculcate scientific thinking in the populace, really sort of stimulate scientific discussion more broadly, and really encourage the development of quality science and health films. And I think those are the things that we share with Vigan Prasad, and I think there's unique opportunities here. I think the opportunities, I think we really need to talk in the language of the different stakeholders that we're trying to talk to when we talk about opportunities. For example, if we talk to the film industry, we have to talk to them about the opportunities for additional revenues. They're very interested in the bottom line. Let's not cut about the cut our words. But if we say to the film industry, look, if you make good science films, there's an insatiable appetite out there amongst the general public for health films. Look at how many films have won Oscars with health themes, and now and after the pandemic, it will only get greater. the need, the want for health films. So there's a market out there, there's an audience out there, so you can sell your films. Not only that, you can get money from different commissions. So not all your typical commissions, you can get commissions from health funders and other, grant bodies that are interested in health, which, sort of dwarfs the sort of arts budget at the moment. So, we need to talk to filmmakers about those opportunities, talk to them in that language. But equally, we must talk to the public health people as well about the opportunities of film. At the moment, public health have a very limited number of tools at their disposal. We wrote a paper not long ago about, how films can be thought about as part of the public health toolkit. It's as if, instead of being a doctor taking a stethoscope out of your bag, you're a public health person and you take a film, out of your wallet, and you use that to convince your audience, these are the right behaviors, these are the right ways to be healthy. And we need to talk to them in that sort of a language to say, where does it fit in the public health armamentarium? I think it's also very, very important because, as countries transition to, away from infectious diseases and more to chronic diseases and go through that epidemiological transition, we're all facing diseases that are essentially behavioral, where the magic bullet is not there. We need to convince people. We need to, give people the right arguments in a way, in a form that they can clearly, easily digest, and then convince them that these are the right ways forward. And I think that film and storytelling is really, really well positioned to do that. I think for the general public, then, what's the opportunity for them? Well, I think if we can get it right, we can give them more entertaining ways of receiving this information. It's not just this is what you have to do, take it or leave it, but it's a more sort of entertaining way of receiving their information. But ultimately, it's about improving their health outcomes. If we can do it right, we should be improving their health outcomes, because there's an opportunity cost here. Why spend money on a film which has maybe dubious evidence versus money on other things which are evidence-based? So we really, really need to be at the forefront of producing the evidence that this has benefit, and that way we will open up the gates for increased funding. And the challenges, I think the core challenge, and as Andreas rightly said, it's not a technical challenge. The core challenge here is about bringing people together who with different sets of skills, different sets of vocabularies, different sets of traditions. People who then together collaboratively working on film projects can help us to translate these often, complex and muddied, discussions about health and science into a really compelling narrative for the film viewer. This is the core challenge that we have, and I agree, it's a people challenge. It's not a technical challenge. But building on from that, I think that there's very specific challenges to our day. And the one thing I want to really point out as a specific challenge is around the need to develop an agreed ethical framework. In these times of misinformation, in these times of mistrust, there's, if we're going to progress, beyond this, and we're going to be seen as honest and responsible purveyors of information to the public, we both as filmmakers who are interested in health films and as public health people and scientists interested in this area have to come together and have to agree on an ethical framework of how we approach this area. What is acceptable, what is unacceptable here. you know. And I think if we can do that and we can build the evidence, those I think are the main challenges at the moment. And I just want to finish by saying that, you know, we are on the cusp of, you know, we're seeing 2020 in the backview mirror, yeah, and we're seeing the sort of ravages of this pandemic in the rear view mirror. We're coming into 2021 with probably the biggest vaccination program the world has ever seen. But nobody talks about the fact that this is also the biggest mass health communication program the world will ever see. If we are to stop this virus, we need to convince people to get a vaccine or get something that helps us stop this virus. Otherwise, we will continually be having these outbreaks. And I think that health communicators and filmmakers will be at the forefront of that challenge, because we will be facing not just that, but we'll be having to face, you know, issues of misinformation. So hopefully we'll come together and we'll, you know, be able to surmount that challenge, and hopefully next year we can meet in person rather than virtually.
Thank you, Dr. Huang, for this beautiful exposition. I was just wondering, you are a qualified doctor. When you transitioned into the role of a communicator, how nicely people took to it. I mean, the social reactions.
Yeah, I mean, I as I say, I came from a background of journalism, and so, you know, I knew really the importance of trying to tell a story in as few words as you could get, and, you know, making it convincing, and having to sell papers, and, you know, but also I think I had the support of a head of department at the time, when we were sort of launching our initiative. And he was an American head of American public health doctor, and his name is Harold Jaffe, and he had been involved in the very early studies of HIV, and it was so compelling they made a film about him. So we approached him and we said, look, would it be okay if we launched this thing and we showed your film at our festival? And he couldn't refuse. So we knew where the strings were to pull. But yeah, I think you know that if more scientists were comfortable with health communication, you know, I think that we would be in a different place.
I think you raised two very important issues also. One of them was that of ethics. And for information, I can tell the viewers and also the experts that the Indian National Science Academy at Delhi has published a book on ethics in research and publication. And in the new edition, they are going to add a chapter based on ethics in medical practices. So that book should be out within a period of a few months. And one more good thing is that the book is available free on the website of Indian National Science Academy.
I would just add to that, Dr. Noto, that there is an active discussion at the moment on public health ethics.
Yes.
What is the basis of public health ethics?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, you know, that's one that filmmakers and scientists and science filmmakers should actively contribute to, because that might be the basis of an ethical framework for what we're going through.
I agree. So thank you so much for this presentation, and you have raised some very, very important points. And the doctor, mix of a doctor and a journalist is really a rare combination. So thank you for this presentation. And now we move over to another person, daughter of a nuclear physicist, herself a filmmaker, and someone who is also involved with the development of academic material for the students. Ms. Rama Merinau Cohen from Israel. She was born and raised in Jerusalem, and she lived mainly in Israel as well as some years in the USA, UK, and Germany. And this was because her father was a nuclear physicist and he was moving around. She holds a bachelor's degree in philosophy and musicology from the Hebrew University and an MBA degree from the Brunel University, UK. Also studied computer science. Today we are having a combination of really very, very talented and multifaceted personalities. And she has been working in the IT industry in Israel for over 3 decades. She's focusing on the e-learning and courseware development. But in addition to her high-tech industrial role, she's also trying to combine additional areas of interest, and she is in writing and does work with the youth on voluntary basis. But after her father passed away, she decided that the story of her father's achievements and work and toil had to be brought onto celluloid or computer, and she made a film on her father's work also, which has been quite popular. And those who are hearing or watching this program, I would tell them that if they are interested in screening this film about her father as a nuclear physicist, they could contact Rama Merino Cohen. So I would invite Ms. Rama Merino Cohen to make her presentation.
Okay, hello everybody, and thank you very much for inviting me for this panel. And hello, Dr. Notial, which I'm very happy to see again after last year that we've met, and some more people that I've met last year. Fortunately, I participated in the festival last year. As you said, I feel very. I'm not as fortunate as most of the people here in the panel who have produced many films and are in the film industry for many years, and I feel, to be honest, pretty envious at you. I think it's one of the most interesting occupations that a person can set for himself to make films, to make documentaries. I think it's an unbelievable experience, and this isn't my background, but I found myself involved in it very heavily about 9 years ago. After my father passed away, I knew that his story has to be told in some kind of way, and I was looking for a way to tell his story. I thought of, also literature, but I understood that documentary film would be the best way, because all of the artistic means that documentary films can enable. And I've, of course, came across the challenges that some of the people here mentioned before. How do you go about scientific film? Where do you start from? On the one hand, if you're a film maker, then probably the specific topic of the science that you want to present is not accessible to you. And if you're a scientist, then usually you don't want to waste your time on making a film. If you're a scientist and a researcher, then you see your time is very precious, and every minute should be devoted for your research. And many times scientists don't want to, excuse me the language, waste their time on filmmaking. So of course this challenge, I'm sure, is very common to everyone who went in this path and tried to make a documentary scientific film. So actually you want to create a team that has all these expertise in it. You want to find a way to connect between the filmmaking expertise and the scientific knowledge. And there, of course, you come across the very main challenges, very basic challenges of what are you trying to describe, to what level of detail do you want to go. This is a very big question. You want to make it accessible to people who are not aware of the subject. Just for an example, nuclear physics, this specific topic that my film is about, the community that deals with this is about 100 people in the world. So, and you want to make it accessible. So how exactly do you do that, and to which level do you go? This is one of the main questions that you have to be very clear about. You want it to be accessible also to physicists and to chemists and to researchers, but also to students and just the general public who don't necessarily have any basic knowledge. So to try to connect these ends is one of the basic challenge. So I would say that the basic challenge is actually to write the script first of all. Writing the script is to make it interesting, to make it to find a good flow, to make it fluent, and to combine in the best way you can a few things: the science itself that you're trying to explain and to present. That's one thing. The scientific story, if you have a scientific story to tell, then how to tell it. As Ms. Su Singh said before, the storytelling is always a big challenge. How to tell a story. It's not something that comes so easy. How to tell a story is a very, very big challenge in film, in literature, everywhere, in history telling, in many areas. The challenge of telling a story is a big challenge. And in my case, the specific person that the film was about, how do I involve his personal biography to make it part of the film itself? If we're talking about a film about a specific scientist, then you have his biography. You want to combine the history, the language, the country, his personal history, his characters, what he was like. And if we can imagine a film about any scientist that we know, either a Nobel laureate or not Nobel laureate, then of course we would want to combine the history and the biography of the specific person with his challenges and with his work life. And all this together has to come in a fluent way that will be thrilling, that will be inspiring, that will be interesting. I think that's the main challenge. And you're talking about science, and it's scientific, but you don't want it to become a lesson. Okay, to create a lesson is much easier in a way. You have to be less creative. I mean, you still have to be very interesting, but to create a good lesson is okay. It's easier. It's easier. You have to set the correct steps to make sure that every time that you explain something, the prerequisites were explained very well before, and then you go step by step, like in a ladder, and that's the way to create a lesson or to create e-learning, okay, which is what I do. But for film, which is a piece of art, it's much more complicated, it's much more challenging, and that's why it's much more thrilling to do. And that's why I said in the beginning that I'm actually envious at all of you that this is what you do all the time. So this is what I did. I thought that my father's story was something that I felt very strong that I had to tell. It wasn't something that I could have done at all when he was alive. There was no way he would have allowed it. He was like very many scientists, which I know or which I've come across, are dedicated to their work, and they don't want to spend one drop of time, okay, in things that do not promote their research. And also for other reasons, there was no way that he would cooperate with such a thing. Although there was a few, articles about him in the public media, but very, very little. He was always focusing in his community, promoting the research in his community of nuclear physics. And even in the nuclear physics, it's a very, very niche area. So, but after he passed away, I felt that it's a must to do it, that I had to do it. And I sat for a few months in his very small office in the Hebrew University in Jerusalem and went through thousands and thousands of letters and papers that were left over. Most of them were totally inaccessible because it's nuclear physics. But the letters and the negotiations and the correspondences I thought were very, very important. That I felt that they had a historical importance and they have to come out. And if you watch the film or have watched the film, then you will understand why I felt that this is very, very important to tell his story. It's not his own. They were working in a team, like usually in natural sciences, you work in a team, you don't work on your own. So there were collaborators from all over the world, including India. But still, they were nevertheless a very small group of collaborators, and the struggle within the scientific community was very immense, and this is what and the courage that they needed in order to promote the research went on for 40 years, and this is the story that I wanted to tell. So going through all the archives, I thought I had to find a way to tell the story, and luckily some of his collaborators picked up the challenge with me and explained the basics, and with their assistance I was able to understand at a very, very high level what was going on, and to write the script and to develop the film. Once it was ready, and I started the efforts of distribution, and try to distribute it, in various places in the film making industry in Israel and outside of Israel. And one of the paths that I tried to reach out was to the Ministry of Education in Israel. And and this, I'm making it short, but it took many years. But eventually, the supervision of physics education in the for high school in Israel, Ministry of Education, they saw the film, and they decided to take it on and to make it part of the syllabus of high school studying, high school for A levels in physics and chemistry. And one of the questions that you asked, Dr. Nortel, and in the preparation for this panel, how can science films be distributed? What to do? What can we do about the distribution? So, from my specific, very, very narrow experience, the fact that it's part of the syllabus of A levels in Israel, now it's distributed. So every year, all the high school students in Israel in physics and chemistry not only watch the film, but they also have a learning unit which was developed by the Ministry of Education based on the film, and they have to go through this learning unit and perform the tasks in it. So first of all, it's watching the film, and after that, there were additional e-learning sessions that were developed on broader subjects on the history of the periodic table of elements, and on other historical achievements that throughout the history, which weren't credited at their time, but only many years later, and so on. And the students are also encouraged to interview, for example, a scientist, either a living scientist or through their imagination, studying about a scientist and then writing an imaginary interview with the scientist, and asking him various questions. So this is a very interesting way to distribute science, to get into, not to learn about science, not only the scientific topic itself, but about everything that goes beyond. What does it mean to be a scientist? What does it mean how can you become a scientist? What does it take to be a scientist? What does it mean to do science? Okay, the practice of doing science, which is something that, at least in Israel, isn't discussed at schools at all. They teach you physics, they teach chemistry, biology, and so on and so forth. But what does it mean to be a scientist? What is your life as a scientist? What can you expect? What can you expect that your life would be like? How do you do physics? How do you do chemistry, and so on? What is the community? What is the scientific community? What does this mean? How do you practice? All these things are taught or are experienced through this, through my film and through the learning unit, which was developed based on it. So I feel that this is a big step forward. The feedbacks that we get in Israel from students is very encouraging, and also from the Ministry of Education. What they say is that in education, you always look for ways to make the material more interesting, to fascinate the students. Okay, in the past, there used to be only textbooks, and that's everything. When I was a student, there were only textbooks, and the more we proceed in time, teachers and principals look for other ways to make the material more interesting, more fascinating, more experienced. So taking a film and using it as a studying material is creates an experience that the students are attached to and are thrilled by. And through that, they learn things that probably you can't learn from a textbook. And the feedbacks that we get are that this is, according to the Israeli Ministry of Education, that this is a very innovative studying unit that they have developed. They're very happy that they did it, and they're looking for other areas to develop additional learning units and studying modules similar to this because of the innovation in the learning method. And some of the feedbacks that we get, that I got, were students that said, we saw the film, we were inspired by it, and when we'll grow up and we want to become physicists, and we want to deal with nuclear physics, and we want to continue the research that Amnon Marinov has done. So of course you can understand that this is very exciting and touching for me. I would love my film to be presented anywhere in any kind of academic institution or high school. It was presented in New Delhi in a high school last year, and it was very, very exciting experience for me. The students were so interested and asked very smart questions. They were high school students, age 17, 200 students in a hall. In New Delhi, and I would love this. And in Israel, of course, it goes on in universities as well, so and academic institutions. So of course, I would love to continue promoting it. That's it.
Thank you, Rama, for this very, very interesting and exciting presentation. I was curious to know, because in this situation of pandemic, have science films been replacing the usual classroom lectures? Has there been more people getting involved into making science films or something?
Well, I wouldn't know to tell you. I don't know to give an answer about this. What I could tell you is that the challenge in schools all over the world is this whole issue of synchronic and asynchronic learning. Till now, before the pandemic, learning was usual. You went to school, you sat in a classroom, and the learning was the synchronic. I mean, everyone is familiar with these terms of synchronic and asynchronic. The teacher, spoke to the classroom, and then they went home and did their homework and so on. And now with the Zoom, or doesn't matter, any kind of collaboration platform, the challenges are in general, the challenges is to keep the students' awareness, because it's much more difficult through platform or through online to keep the people involved. It's much easier to lose your attention. It's much easier just to switch off the camera and go away and so on. We know that from all the everywhere, not only from schools and education, but mainly because this was the main challenge all over the world since this COVID-19 broke out. So if you have, it's not only films, but also through films, if you have a program that combines synchronic and asynchronic learning, then you're far way better, and you can make sure that your students are, not wasting their time and continuing with their learning or with their learning program that you and the challenges that you have at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Rama, for this very good presentation. And I'm sure that many people would be interested in watching this film that you have made about Professor Cohen. And We have 3 more speakers, and all 3 are distinguished people. But I am keeping some of the best for the end. I would now invite the young Mr. Karthik Sharma. He's a science filmmaker who studied science filmmaking at the University of London. And as a researcher and a filmmaker, he has been mainly interested in the issues related to health. His documentaries have been screened in many international film festivals such as Sheffield, UK, and Oxford, and West of India Short Film Festival, and so on. As a filmmaker, he has been interested in raising awareness about the Indian scientific, social, and health issues. He has partnered with many organizations like Public Health Foundation of India, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, Thought Center of Humanities, University of Oxford, and so on. At present, he's working for his first fiction film. Now, this, I am sure, will be a big transition for him. And so I would invite Mr. Karthik Sharma Buria to come and tell us about his experience in making science documentaries and now his transition to the feature film. Mr. Karthik.
Well, thank you, Dr. Nautiyal, for your kind introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here. First of all, thank you to Vigyan Prasar for, this is my second outing here. I was there in Calcutta also last year, so very grateful to Dr. Prasher and Nimish for inviting me and giving me this opportunity this time around. So yes, as Dr. Nautiyal introduced me, I'm a filmmaker, and I've been making films on health and social issues. And I've also founded an organization called Public Arts Health in Us, which actually works with in the field of public health. So it engages with researchers and scientists from the health fraternity and helps them translate their information and make it more engaging to the public. So these are the crossroads we are working in. And we have projects running in India and also in the UK. So this primarily is what PAHUS has been involved in. So it's actually very interesting what Dr. Parashar had mentioned and all the other delegates here, that about the need of this, what is supposed to be communicated needs to be very engaging. It should be interesting and not just heavy on facts, but it should also be something which is easily absorbable by who is listening to it. So this is the area which PAHUS and I have been working in as a filmmaker and through my organization, that how do we pick up these very complicated terms and make it, simplify it for the audiences a betterment so that they can absorb it better and most importantly, execute it in their lives in the field of public health. So it was very interesting, this topic for this discussion, because this is something which is very interesting for me, because as a filmmaker, I try to explore cross-cultural similarities between India and different countries. So the film which you kindly introduced is also looking at how India has shared similarities with the UK and Far East, like how we have these similar thinkings. And so that's, I think, is also one of the opportunities we have as science communicators. It's about the areas of synergy. And I'll be happy to introduce that through my colleague, Uy, who's also on board with the Public Health Film Festival. We have been exploring these areas of synergy with Vigyan Prasar. So Nimish was very kindly on board our last film festival. So, and he had very interesting inputs coming from India. And especially, I think, as Indians, we have this whole idea of somewhere naturally being pioneers in fields, because I was so proud when I was attending this film festival in Hong Kong, and they spoke about how back then, only 2 filmmakers were very famous from Asia. One was Mr. Satyajit Ray, and one was Mr. Akira Kurosawa. And so, and when we talk about science communication, maybe this is not very pertinent, but say a film like E.T., which was made by Steven Spielberg, but the whole idea and everything came about by Mr. Satyajit Ray's concepts, and which is discussed so openly. So I think there's so many areas of synergy, and I'm personally very committed to it through my organization in India, where Mr. Nimish is on board the whole PAHUS framework. We have other, like from Germany, there is one, Falling Walls Engage, which is very interested in setting up a setup in India and bringing together Vigyan Prasar, PAHUS, and Public Health Film Society in the UK, and have more dialogues about science engagement, and have more scientists come and speak directly with the audiences, something which is done with TED and other talks. So I think areas of synergy, exploring them, and the thing to connect is something, a good opportunity we have through, perhaps from all of us, we make that opportunity for this particular endeavor. And challenge, as lastly, it would be like, I was telling my team just before this, we had a meeting. I was like, let's not make it too complicated. Let's make it more simple. When all of us are coming together, let's try and make it more interesting. Like, and I quoted, if I may quote, Mr. Bill Gates said that, like if you want to make, I always give a complicated work to somebody who's lazy, because then he'll find the simplest way to do it. So I telling them, we should, since you're communicators, we should find somebody who gets confused very easily. And then we tell him to communicate it, because he'll find the simplest way to communicate it. So, so finding those ways so that it's just, the point is that we want our audience to understand it. So finding the right way to do it. And as many other panelists also commented about the balance, that it's because it's science, it's health. We have to get, we do not want to add to the miscommunication. We want to add to the right and credible information, so that keeping that balance of facts and fiction, and making it entertaining and interesting, so that people, don't go to Netflix and come to the Vigyan Prasar app or the Discovery app and, want to know more about science communication. So these are my little points, and thank you so much for this opportunity again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Karthik. But one thing I would like to ask you, you have been making documentaries on science, and now you are moving on to feature film, which is based on the mental health. So what was the biggest challenge in making this changeover?
So, so my last films have always, to me, honestly, I like to simplify things. So for me, there was no challenge. My challenge was, how do I make it more interesting? And how is it that, so clarity of thought was something which needed some thinking. Was perhaps it's one challenge which all should, like, what is it that we want to communicate, or what is it are we trying to achieve through the mental health film? Are we trying to make this film just so that it's entertaining? Because what happens with films is when they pick up sensitive topics, they want to, like, especially with mental health, they demonize it. That, the mental health becomes like, oh, this is not, sorry to say so, that, they are perhaps murderers, or they are like not normal, or you cannot, they are dangerous. So that's the myth we did not want to address. We actually wanted to show it as a strength, so that's the whole in the storyline, that, that how mental health actually becomes the strength of the character, so that people, the audience, when they watch it, and if they have any mental health issues, they think of it as, okay, why don't we, rather than thinking of it as a disadvantage, why don't we think of it as an advantage? So that's a challenge we need to not only talk about, but show from the film.
Film with a message.
Yes, film with a message.
Thank you so much for this presentation. We have two stalwarts now. One is Mr. Mahesh Jha. He is based in Germany, and for more than three decades, he has been with the Deutsche Welle. And in 2020, their multimedia content was DW, that is Deutsche Welle, in 30 languages, including some of the Indian languages. It exceeded 249 million weekly users. And I think that's a great achievement. He has been with the international media for many years, almost 80s, and he has keenly observed the process of European integration. Incidentally, I happened to be in Germany during 89 and 90. I was kind of watching this breaking of the Berlin Wall and so on. He's responsible for two TV magazines published in Hindi, Manthan and Eco India Hindi. Manthan is a science, technology, lifestyle magazine, and Eco India Hindi is an environmental magazine, which is solution oriented. So I would invite Maheshji, the seasoned veteran of the field, to please enlighten us.
Thank you very much, Nautiyalji, for inviting me on this panel. I'm honored to be on the panel with eminent and diverse personalities. It was really interesting to learn about their experiences. I have also to tell the story. I am not a filmmaker, I say I am a reporter. And my transition has been from political reporting to science reporting. We had radio earlier at the Deutsche Welle, so I was working with Deutsche Welle's Hindi program. And after we started doing TV magazine and video reports, I said that earlier we used to use our language to create a story, create a scene. And now scene is already there. We'll have to reduce the language so that the language can just support the visuals. And that has been a great challenge personally, learning to tell the story in a different way. I'll describe a little bit this process. We started around 2012. In 2012, we started this magazine. The preparations started a bit earlier. Why we started with Manthan? We had a science program during our radio time, and that was really very popular in India. Basic science program. So we thought when possibility for television came, why can't we start something also with videos where we can show also? We are not just describing the things, trying to explain people who have not seen something and who cannot visualize, and that was the challenge at that time. So take video. It was successful. We tried, and basically it has started with a partner. Manthan show was telecast on Doordarshan, and since 2012, it is 2020. Just now it is not being shown because of Corona, but it is perhaps longest telecast show of science program, I think. Manthan is a show of science, technology, and lifestyle. Basically, hardcore research we try to show, how it is affecting our life and how it is changing our lifestyles. These three elements are there. Then we realized that environment is becoming very important, also in India, and not only in India, everywhere. So we started this Eco India project. Eco India is a show which brings out environmental issues of India and combines it with issues in Europe or other parts of the world. Again, it is solution-based reporting, where we just not only show the problems, but also how people are trying to solve those problems, what they are doing to get rid of the problems. Whenever you have time, I'll request you to see that. The shows are just now online on our page. We can try to show the, hopefully I would be able, can you, this is our YouTube channel, can you see that? It is in Hindi.
We can see.
Yeah, though we have programs in 30 languages, and this is dedicated for Hindi, and we have different reports here. Again, in the beginning, we were getting the material and footage from Deutsche Welle's archive, or the program was being done in German and English. So main reports we were getting from them. But as time passed, we started working on it, and we started preparing our own reports also. So that way we were science reporters. We were developing into science reporters, and the biggest challenges were to find subjects which we can tell with our language. Most of the people came from political background. They were political reporters. We were sitting in Germany, and from here we wanted to tell their story, tell them what is happening here. So language was very important, and we have developed, because partly if you are not doing science reporting, then you don't know the words also which would be understood across Hindi belt of India. So we needed partners there. We talked a lot with people who were active in science. Vigyan Prasar came in our way during those discussions, and I am really thankful to Nimish ji and also Dr. Nakul Parasar. We have been meeting in past years and trying to develop up our cooperation also, because Vigyan Prasar gives us repository of the films being made in India, because our endeavor is also, as Mr. Abhishek said, we want to bring those stories for the world in 30 different languages. It should not remain Indian story. If something good is happening there, it should go also to other countries. And the stories coming from India are really popular on our different platforms. We have also a page of Hindi, where we have a dedicated page for Manthan. For people who are doing Hindi, they would, here there are online reports, and also films can be seen on this page. One more thing I wanted to show you. Where is that? Oh. Now this is creating a little problem for me. Wanted to show you also English page. They have also dedicated page on science and environment. So people who are not able to read Hindi and understand Hindi, they can get a lot on our English page also. It is important that during past months of lockdown, our now how to go programs have become popular. Nautiyal ji said that 49 million people per week are touching us, and this has become possible also because of our reporting on COVID. People wanted to have information so that they can decide, and we have tried to give them as much as information possible. When leaders like presidents are not accepting that corona is a threat, and they are taking people with us, then it becomes very important that people are indecisive, they feel threatened, and they need information. We have done that, and it has helped us also. Other challenges has been for us when we make the program language. I talked about finding right subject, visualizing the theme whenever you are going out for to do your own report, getting relevant data, finding right interview partners. Andreas told us about the problem of scientific language and scientists telling the things in their own language which nobody understands. So for us, it was even more problematic. If you don't come from science background, then how to transport it in a different language. So good thing is that there are a lot of Indian researchers in Germany now. So they are able to give us not only contacts, they tell us about the research they are doing, or research being done in their universities, and give us also contact with their professors. Then it becomes easier to get contact and also to be able to tell the story. It is clear that people want to have more content on science, and we are doing this from here. Trying to bring India and Germany also together in this regard, particularly the research being done together by scientists of India and Germany. And that will remain our endeavor in future also. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasahab, for this beautiful representation of the work that you have been doing for the past 3 decades and more. And we believe that Germany has had very good contact with India. And this is good that both the countries, people get to know each other better. Our next, as they say, last but not the least, one very, very important member of this panel is Ms. Brigitte Juthar-Korneski. She's from Switzerland. I remember that way back in 1980, when I was visiting France, a Swiss gentleman asked me if it was true that elephants and lions roam the roads in India. Now we are bringing to you a veteran filmmaker, Ms. Brigitte Juthar-Korneski, and she's going to talk about elephants. But I believe that she has made a beautiful film where the elephant sleeps. Now, she is an animal rights activist also, living in Switzerland, and her multifaceted personality with an extensive background in science, philosophy, photography, art, history, and music also. I am told that she is a very good singer too. And now she has put all this expertise in making films. One of her very famous films, as I said, was Where the Elephants Sleep. She's also ambassador for Captive Elephants India and founder and president of the charity organization Elephantine Not. She works as an independent filmmaker in the field of biodiversity and elephant conservation in India, and she's author of different magazines on wildlife protection and elephant issues. And she has made films depicting the plight of elephants in many of the Indian places where they suffer foot injuries. She interacts with youth from colleges and universities about animal protection, particularly elephant protection, and the related conservational issues. The foot treatment project started by her non-governmental organization has helped to alleviate problems of numerous elephants. Her award-winning film, Where the Elephant Sleeps, is among her best-known creations. I invite her to tell us about this wonderful film of hers and the other projects of film, and also the challenges and the achievements. Ms. Brigitte Juthar-Korneski.
There, you can hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm so impressed by all your insights. I can't even tell. So thank you, Dr. Nautiyal. It's so nice to see you here again. Hello and namaste, namaskar to all of you at the panel. It's so great to see familiar faces and always an honor to be here. I also would like to express our all great respect and thankfulness to the organizer and convener of this festival, which is Nimishji, Dr. Nimish Kapoor, and the director, Nick G, for Dr. Nakul Parashar, for pulling this off during so difficult times. I can't even imagine this hard body work that you have done. You were asking what drew me to elephants. See, the shortest distance between science and society is cinema. Films are a very powerful tool for science communication, and they can be used in different contexts. But one of the most needed is to bring the general public closer to scientific context. And there's no point of discussion. We all agree to that. The fact that scientists talk mostly among themselves with the knowledge seldomly leading to change matters should make us rethink how conservation should be practiced and community-based. Integrating indigenous knowledge to the same amount as scientific research. Science films should include more, in my understanding, more field research details. Grassroots level perspective provides a realistic point of view to your work, to our all work. So again, back to that question, what drew me to elephants? You might know that I'm coming from human rights filmmaking in Africa. I guess that as old as humanity is, as old as their ethical values are, and self-understood, they are not always the same. They change through generations. So mine simply switched from human rights to animal rights, especially to elephant rights in India. And frankly, these two rights topics are just one footstep apart. And they have one thing in common, which is they are not to be heard and they share being voiceless. Asian elephant has been accorded highest protection by listing them in Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, as we all know. The Ministry of Environment and Forests is quite concerned about its protection, care and management. And it constituted an expert committee to study the status of these elephants in India. The committee submitted the report in 2004. However, the ministry has not received any feedback from any of the elephant states, and they are still facing the same issues. So every year, everything here is a big topic. The need for framing special rules and guidelines for management and care of captive elephants in Kerala, in Rajasthan. The need for improving training facility for mahouts and elephants. The need for improving working condition of mahout and elephants. The need for better veterinary care for captive elephants. The need for enforcing legal provisions, particularly for ownership and prevention of cruelty. And last but not least, the implementation of all. So it's a very complex matter. The biggest clash that you asked me for to answer is that I personally provoked and experienced was that the foot treatment you have mentioned on behalf of my organization for 103 elephants in Jaipur with the permission of the Forest Department. I had to write to the Ministry of Environment and Forest Climate Change, actually for 3 times, to finally receive the message from the Forest Department in Jaipur that the foot treatment, which was already given permission by the same department, in a sudden has changed and will not take place. This thing was big, and actually it did not hit the media because the media policies are very difficult, and I would like to hesitate for a moment to use the word corruption, to really in quotation marks and to a certain extent. They did not reply to that. They did not report on that. And they also did not report to the fact that the Animal Welfare Board of India has, according to my film release after 2016, came up with a 99 pages strong report on all these elephants, 111, I think it was those days, with 10 tested tuberculosis positive. Long story short, I have discovered with the 3 doctors, they're all, again, 10 are tuberculosis positive, and 9 of them are working with tourists on their backs, walking up Amer Fort. So now, that was the biggest clash. And you asked, why is this so difficult? Because I'm constantly making the spagat between, real grassroots level research, fundamentally work with the people, they see what's going on, and sometimes it's very difficult to find the access, no matter if it's a tropical rainforest, Dehing Patkai, which is supposed to be a national park right now, or Nambo Doigrong Valley wildlife sanctuary, which has illegally, the same like Doigrong wildlife, the same like Dehing Patkai, has given rights to mining, but under certain conditions, and the conditions were not granted by the people who did it, at least. So half of the park is almost mining, is coal mining. So this is all very, very difficult, and I make this spagat between my organization, which is probably impersonated by my own person, and the filmmaking. So I'm constantly between these both, and it turned out that the forest department collaborated with the elephant owners to an extent that we can say the elephant owners dominated the forest department. And things like this, I could go on for endless. It is very complicated in India to, if you are on the point that you not just make a film and put it into festivals, that's self-understood, I'm not talking about this. If you really want to provoke the change, and I will talk about this tomorrow in the masterclass, because I think that's the most important thing, that we are beautifully talking heads. Actually, you guys are 100 times better than I am. I'm not used to talk so much, but we need to implement what we talk and focus on that. We need to find a pathway to the audience. You know, scientists not long ago, a few decades, maybe one, have written their formula on a transparent window in their laboratory, because they had no paper anymore. They're just writing in the lab. So this is nicely transparent, but it's not available. We need to find methods to, and we all agree, to transform these formulas, these knowledge, scientific knowledge, into a point where, again, I think it was Akanksha who said that, make it interesting and passionate for school children to digest all this knowledge, all these messages. We have to transform that into pictures, basically, and pictures which are provoking the change, provoking emotions, provoking the transmission of that knowledge on a very simple level. Back briefly to the elephants, we might run out of time. There was a case recently held by all the media, and it only hit the media because it was an elephant who ate a pineapple with an explosive, it was Soumya. And Soumya had so much pain in her mouth because she could not eat anymore, she could not drink water, nothing, and she was pregnant with a baby. She went into the water to chill her pain, and there she died standing up. Had she died fallen down in the water, it would not hit the media. A dead elephant standing up straight hit the media. So we took that moment to go again on all these matters in India regarding elephants. There are elephants which are recently electrocuted by saging power lines in Assam. About 113 elephants have died of electrocution in Assam in the past 11 years. That makes 10 per year in average. Because the villagers are in the districts, they're putting up the electric fences to protect their crops. There are other methods to protect crops. So again, back to the more abstract level, we need to do our grassroots level work where these things on location are happening, and then make a film about it and put it back to the people to educate them in small versions. Mines are endlessly long, normally feature length, but small films to educate in schools and universities. That's what I'm doing as well. So I can also encourage everybody to do that. I think is that already is that good for to get an input of how complicated that is between elephants and humans? I think that's, yeah. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. And the empathy and the sympathy for the animals is something which I think is very much desired. During this course of this 2-hour session, we have discussed many things. We have talked about how important it is for the doctors to talk to the public, how important is the issue of ethics, how important it is to make films on the diversity in nature so that people contribute to saving this world, how important it is to make documentaries on science or even on the lives of scientists so that children who watch them are inspired to become scientists. All these things, and also that the visual content when added to the words or text, as was tried in Germany, can make it much more attractive and the reach can be increased tremendously. So thank you very much for this wonderful session. And this comes as a part of India International Science Festival, which is here in its 6th edition. The first time it was held was in the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. Then it moved on to National Physical Laboratory, Delhi. Then it came to Chennai, then to Lucknow, then to Kolkata. And now this time we have gone much higher on the virtual world. And at a time is nearing, I think Sabyasachi is already on the screen. So we are closing it with a big thank you to Rama Marino Cohen, to Karthik Sharma Barua, to Mahesh Jha, to Brigade Taneski, Andrea Evers, Dr. Nakul Parashar, Dr. Yu Huang, Sai Abhishek, Akansha Sood Singh, and Sabyasachi, and to Mr. Nimish Kapoor, Dr. Parashar, and Vigyan Prasad. And we hope to see you again. There will be more sessions in the coming 3 days, and there will be master classes. There will be master classes on films related topics too. So I invite all the viewers to this program and regularly watch them, and then we meet next time again for the next session of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Nautiyal sir, and thank you all the panelists. But before we conclude the session, I have a few announcements to make. I know that there are several questions which were coming and people are eager to ask, but I'm extremely sorry that I'm unable to take any question due to the time constraint. But I want to inform them that tomorrow we are having 3 master classes. From 12 to 1 p.m. there is a master class on new trends in science filmmaking by a very veteran filmmaker, A.G.A. van der Laar, science filmmaker from Amsterdam, Netherlands. And then we have another master class from 3:30 to 5 o'clock on science filmmaking is your passion, provoke the change. By Brigade, and we know we had heard her. So Brigade will be talking about the passion and how the passion can provoke the change through the science filmmaking. And then at 5 o'clock to 6:30, we are having another master class by National Award winner Miss Aarti Srivastava on science filmmaking and storytelling. So I request all the participants who are there to come and join tomorrow all these 3 master classes and ask as many questions you want to ask. I'm extremely sorry I'm not able to take any question today. So thank you again, Nautiyal sir, and thank you all the participants who agreed and given your precious time. See you tomorrow, and there will be another master classes and other webinars in coming days. One more thing, as we had Akansha Sood Singh and Andreas and are with us, so I will request our viewers to go to the Vigyan Prasad YouTube channel, and you can see some of the wonderful films from Akansha Sood Singh as a festival special. At the same time, you can see the latest film of Andreas, which was as a part of the festival. So kindly go to the YouTube channel of Vigyan Prasad and see more than 213 films from 32 countries, which are nominated by the distinguished jury panel. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you all the panelists. Thank you so much for giving your time and enlightening everyone. look forward to seeing you again. Maybe in person next time. Let's hope.
Exactly.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Stay well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Wonderful.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.